The April 15th, 2024, 2 p.m. session of Roanoke City Council is hereby called to order, and I will ask our clerk, Ms. Susan McCord, to please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Here.
Ms. White Boyd?
Here.
Mr. Volleson?
Here.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Here.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Here.
And Mayor Lee.
Here, and quorum is present. And welcome to everybody. This morning, our invocation will be delivered by Elder Milton Hardy Jr., who is the Associate Pastor of Greater Prayer Temple. And following the invocation, I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would, stand, please.
Let us pray. Dear gracious God, we just thank you for everything you've done for us on today. God, if it had not been for you, we would not have the things that we have. If it was not for you, we would not be able to think the way we think. And on today, God, we ask you to be in our thoughts, be in our minds, be in our decisions, the things that we have to do, the uneasy conversations that we have to have in this session, or the great things that we celebrate within the session. Whatever the situation may be, Lord, we ask you be in the middle of all those thoughts, because it's in you we live. It's in you we move, and it's within you that we have our being. We're going to give you the praise, the credit, and the glory for all these things. In your mighty, matchless name, amen. Amen. And amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. And I want to note that council meetings will be televised live and replayed on RVTV Channel 3 on Thursdays at 7 o'clock p.m. and Saturdays at 10 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. and video stream through Facebook Live at facebook.com/Roanoke VA. Council meetings are offered with closed captioning for the deaf or hard of hearing. All right, announcements for today's session, April 15th. The Council of the City of Roanoke is seeking applications for various boards and committees and commissions. And we ask you to please access the city's website, which is www.roanokeva, to complete an online application. We encourage all of you who want to serve in any capacity to please step forward and fill out their applications. It's an easy process. The clerk's office can help you do that, but we want more of our citizens to be a part of our boards and commissions. And it's important that you do that. So we welcome your application, and so you can notice, and you'll notice vacancies will tell you what we're looking for. So thank you for entering all of your willingness to serve. All right. Our next item on the agenda is presentations and acknowledgments, and I'll ask Sonia Woman. Is she here? Okay, you pinch hitting today. Okay, who was Sonia was our E911 manager to join me, and I want to ask you to join me at the podium. I'm delighted to have with me Tracy Shelton today, and I want to take a little, I'm going to share with you a proclamation really declaring April 14th through the 20th, 2024, as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. And I want to share this and present this proclamation to Tracy, and I'll let her have a few remarks. Emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. Whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the City of Roanoke E911 Center, and whereas 911 communication officers are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. Whereas 911 communication officers are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information and ensuring their safety. Whereas 911 communication officers will contribute substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatments of patients. Whereas 911 communication officers' impressive skills, knowledge, and experience provide a lifeline to the public and to all law enforcement, emergency medical services, and first responders. Whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. And whereas the work of these unseen first responders is invaluable in emergency situations, and each of these dedicated men and women deserve our heartfelt appreciation. Now, therefore, I, Sherman P. Lee, Mayor of the City of Roanoke, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the week of April 14th through the 20th, 2024, throughout this great 7-time All-American city as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. All right, and I have this proclamation. Is anybody taking any pictures of?
Yeah, they have an official photographer. I was fired.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm going to let you up to the restroom and take this picture.
Yes, sir.
All right. Tracy, the mic is yours. Thank you.
This week is a great week to recognize all the hard work that our telecommunicators do on a daily basis. They do play such a crucial role in the emergency response and keeping our communities safe. We thank all of the telecommunicators for their invaluable service. They love welcoming other departments and public safety partners to come out, tour the center, spend some time with them, letting them know how much they're appreciated every day. This is a week that they look forward to each year. Our core members put together a special week for them with games, prizes, and gifts to get them through the week. And I would like to thank our very talented core team from behind the scenes of all the work they put into prepping for this week. We do have a few of them in the audience if they would stand up. Thank you for that. And we also have other telecommunicators in the room. If everyone that works for the 911 Center would stand up for recognition as well. Thank you very much. I do want to thank the City Council for recognizing them for this week and every day, especially when you come and visit us. And we'd like to say thank you to everyone from around the city that will be stopping by to help celebrate the week, so thank you all.
All right. What are y'all doing celebrating? Is having Cake
We're,
or ice
we're
cream?
having, we are having some food. We're gonna do some cooking, we're gonna do some eating out, and we're gonna do some prizes and games throughout the week.
That's great.
Okay, we need one of those days.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Let's give him another hand. All right. Angela Vernon, Assistant City Manager, Apprentice. Are you here?
Yes, sir.
Come on down, Angela. I have a proclamation to read, and we going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Municipal Volunteer Program of the City of Roanoke. And, okay, got a fair for him. That's good to see here. All right. Whereas the City of Roanoke proudly commemorates the 20th anniversary of the Municipal Volunteer Program, a testament to the enduring spirit within our community. Whereas for 2 decades, the Municipal Volunteer Program has exemplified the power of volunteerism to effect positive change and strengthen the bonds of fellowship among our residents. Whereas the dedication and enthusiasm of volunteer program has exemplified the power of volunteerism to effect positive change and strengthen the bonds of fellowship among our residents. Whereas the dedication and enthusiasm of volunteers have played an integral role in enhancing the vitality and resilience of the City of Roanoke, contributing countless hours to initiatives that uplift and empower our community. Whereas the Municipal Volunteer Program has fostered partnerships between city government, local organizations, and community members, harnessing collective action to address challenges and seize opportunities for growth and progress. Whereas the Municipal Volunteer Program serves as a beacon of service, uniting dedicated individuals from diverse backgrounds in a common mission to uplift and support our community. And whereas we celebrate this milestone anniversary, we honor the legacy of all those who have selflessly served through the Municipal Volunteer Program, embodying the values of compassion, generosity, and civic engagement that define the character of our city. Now, therefore, I, Sherman P. Lee, Sr., Mayor of the City of Roanoke, call upon all citizens to join me in expressing gratitude to the volunteers who have contributed to the success of this program and reaffirming our commitment to service and community, and do hereby proclaim April 26, 2024 as Municipal Volunteer Program Day. Let's give them a hand. And I do want to recognize Angela Vernon to come and share first and share and introduce the staff and however you want to go, Angela.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Lee, and good afternoon, Vice Mayor Cobb and members of council, and to those present this afternoon. Today I have with me our Human Resources staff. We have Jennifer White, our Human Resources consultant, our manager, Human Resources Manager John Sanders, and Narik Bailey, who we're really excited about, our new HR recruiter, who was formerly an intern last summer, and some of you may remember him from previously being before the podium. But I'm just really grateful to come before you this afternoon. We want to say thank you for recognizing the city's municipal volunteer program and all of our citizens who have volunteered their services, time, and talent over the past 20 years. So approximately 20 years ago, under the Darlene Bertram City Administration, and also under the former Director of Human Resources, Ken Cronin, during his leadership, we launched a formal volunteer program by which was centralized in the Department of Human Resources. And so since that time, volunteers have participated in government in various capacities that you're all familiar with, and some of which you may not be familiar with. Everything from volunteer coaches, our trail work, our Greenway ambassadors, our tree stewards, garden clubs, Star City Reads volunteers, those in our libraries, those who support our street and park cleanups, within our police department, our Citizens Police Academy, the Sheriff's Office, the arts, our boards and commissions, and the list could go on and on. So we are forever grateful to our citizens for their contributions. And on April 26th, we want to invite council, the mayor, as well as our community and volunteers to join us for a reception on Friday, April 26th, from 12:30 to 2:30 in the north lobby of the municipal building. We will have a reception as well as a mini volunteer fair, if you will, for those interested in learning more about getting involved in local government. And we also will have an unveiling at that time of a plaque to commemorate this 20th year anniversary. So thank you.
Thank you. Photo op,
Yes, sir.
photo, and
But can we move over here real quick, because there's more of you than there are. Thank you. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, before y'all leave, I failed to do this, but I want to give my colleagues a chance to say something. If they want to say something, so pretty much, Ms. Whiteboard?
Yes, Mayor, and I'm going to go back to the telecommunications. I wanted to just thank them also for what they do, because you save lives, and your job is really important, and I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you, Mayor, for giving us an opportunity to say something. And also congratulations to our volunteers. I think it's important to give back. I always try to give back, and for the city to have a program that encourages volunteerism, I think is just amazing. So thank you all, and thank you to everyone who has allowed it to continue. I think that's important. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Volson?
First, I want to thank our telecommunicators. I've been out to the Blue Hills facility, and it's really gorgeous, but I know it's a really stressful job that you're in, and I know it takes a toll on your mental health and on you as a person. And so I just want to say a big thank you, because that is a huge position. You are the link between the victim and their services. So I really appreciate everything you do, and I hope that everything's going well out there at Blue Hills. And don't forget to invite the mayor for some cake.
I got it down, man, I'll do that. Vice Mayor?
Thank you all. Do you all, Angela, Jennifer, John, Rick, do you have any idea how many volunteers collectively over 20 years for the city? I know that might be a reach.
It's thousands, and the reason I say that, when we launched the program in 2004, I think it was in like our 10-year anniversary. At that time, we had over 1,000 volunteers. And over the years, things have kind of morphed and changed, and so I would say several thousand volunteers have been here.
Well, we certainly know directly from the boards and commissions and the people who serve, but to hear that list of ways that people can volunteer is really extraordinary. So I hope we can continue to find ways to publicize that, and it's a great way to get involved in the life of the city. And I also want to thank the 911 telecommunicators. I don't know how you all do it with everything that you deal with, but the fact that you're always calm. Maybe you're not when you're not on the phone, which is fine, you got to vent sometime, but having that calm presence when someone is frantic or just needing information is absolutely critical, and I really commend you for that. Thank you all.
Everybody else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Sanchez, John?
I just want to say to the 911 workers, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate what you do and you sacrifice. I don't know if many of you don't know, but my husband used to work downstairs when the 911 center was downstairs, and I know firsthand how stressful it is. So thank you for your service. And to the volunteers, thank you for the many hours that you and people in the community, in our organization have put into volunteering. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Thank you. I just wanted to say to Angela, I remember when she was hired as the volunteer coordinator and working with her in the city clerk's office. I want to say we had maybe 3 or 4 volunteers come through our office and work, and as well as working with the city administration on recognizing those volunteers with the authorities, boards, commissions. When we used to do the reception, we combined it, and I believe we did it at Elmwood Park. We did this big ad in the paper, and then, yes, yes. So we recognized what the roles were of volunteers, and I'm glad to see the program is still thriving, and I would hope other departments would consider that and hiring volunteers, especially in high school or what have you, for half days. And the ones we had really enjoyed working in the city clerk's office and gaining some knowledge as to how offices work. So thank you all for your service for that.
All right. Thank you, and let's give them another hand, and I want to Okay, we have a resolution memorializing the life of Kenneth Cronin, who was just mentioned, for dedicated service to the environment as former Director of Sustainability for the City of Roanoke. And I want to ask his wife, Ms. Courtney Cronin, is she here? Come on down. And the family, any other family that's in attendance, please join her here at the podium. And Neil Boyle. Boyle, is he? Okay.
Bring them on down.
All right, it's good to have you all here with us today. And I have a resolution that I want to read, memorializing and celebrating the life of Kenneth Stephen Cronin for his dedicated service to the environment as the Director of Sustainability for the City of Roanoke. Whereas the members of City Council recognize with sorrow the passing of Kenneth Stephen Cronin on August 27, 2023. Whereas Kenneth Stephen Cronin was born on April 18, 1953, in Webster City, Iowa, to the late Alta Billings Cronin and Raymond Patrick Cronin. He received his bachelor's degree from St. Francis University, followed by a master's degree in public administration from West Virginia University. He married Courtney Ann Barnett, and together they raised their son Scott Patrick Cronin and daughter Leah Ann Hamlin and husband Jack Hamlin. In addition, he greatly enjoyed his 2 grandchildren, Grace and John Henry Hamlin. Are they here? All right, okay. Whereas Ken Cronin worked for the City of Roanoke for 38 years and boldly moved Roanoke forward with innovative and effective programs, leading by example and making Roanoke clean and green for future generations. Whereas the City of Roanoke has been recognized regionally and nationally with numerous awards for their environmental leadership. Mr. Cronin made an outstanding contribution to the environment and made the City of Roanoke a leader in Virginia for environmental protection. Whereas Mr. Cronin's leadership in 2007, the City of Roanoke was the first local government in Virginia for sustainability and commitment to a carbon reduction goal of 10% for community emissions and 12.5% of municipal emissions over 5 years. The actual reduction exceeded the goals, with the community reduction of 13% and municipal reduction of 25%. Whereas during his time, the most successful initiative was Roanoke's Municipal Energy Efficiency Program, drastically reducing the city's energy consumption. The city was widely recognized for this successful program, including a leadership award in 2015 from the Department of Energy's Better Building Challenge for the energy upgrades of the Berglund Center. Whereas Roanoke's carbon reduction program saved the taxpayers millions of dollars over 10 years of Mr. Cronin's leadership, saving the city over $900,000 in avoided energy costs in 2014. Therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Roanoke as follows. The City Council adopts this resolution as a means of recording its deepest regret and sorrow at the passing of Kenneth Stephen Cronin, extending to his wife Courtney Ann Barnett Cronin and family its sincerest condolences, and recognizing his community service to the Roanoke Valley. The city clerk is directed to provide an attested copy of this resolution to Ms. Cronin and family. All right, it's a resolution. Is there a second?
The resolution.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Pretty? Aye. Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Aye. Thank you. And so it's now legal. And I want to ask my colleagues if they have any comments or any thoughts about Mr. Cronin. Yeah, Peter?
If I may, I went to school with Leanne. But just hearing what he was able to get accomplished in sustainability at a time when sustainability wasn't a buzzword that we talk about all the time, is really impactful, and I'm glad that we're memorializing that today. Again, of course, our condolences about your father and grandfather. But I hope that we as a city can continue to build on his record of making us more sustainable and carbon neutral, and that we can continue that forward here. Thanks.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Mine is just short. I remember meeting Ken when he came to Roanoke, and he was the personnel manager when the city first hired him to come in, and then he moved over under the directorship. So I had a long time of working with him, and I have to truly say he was a great man to work with, and so you have my condolences on his passing.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I just want to thank you all for being here today. I know the past year has probably been very challenging, and grief is very difficult. But being able to celebrate Ken's life in this way and many other ways is a tribute to you all and to him and to his legacy. So thank you all for sharing him with us.
All right. Thank you. Well, I'm going to present this to Courtney, and you're welcome to have a few words or comments. You don't have to. But
I didn't come prepared, but I can tell you Ken loved every day that he worked for the city, and I heard a lot about it, and I'll probably stop there, but I can hear him smiling about this. This is great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Did we get a picture of them, Carol?
Courtney, I want to take a picture of the family if you don't mind. Yeah, if you would. Go right around there. We'll go right around. Hey, how you doing? Good. Thank you very much. How you doing, man? Sir, how are you? All right. Go walk right around.
We're doing it close, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind coming up this way, we'll be in the picture too. Yes. Yeah, get in here with this hot pink.
I'm just fine, I'm picking spots to get the
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I think that does it with all the resolutions of people. Okay. All right, we're now down to the hearing of citizens upon public matters. Madam Clerk, do you have any people that have signed up?
We have two citizens.
All right, please call the name that
All
they
right.
signed up.
We have Frida Cathcart, followed by Jeff Todd, and they have 5 minutes each.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Frida Cathcart. I am a proud citizen of the Star City and avid Dogs fan. The Dogs, Railroad Dogs, won their series this past weekend, and I've got my go Dogs! I've got my tickets for this Friday and Saturday for the semifinals. So, hoping that we get to keep the President's Cup here because we won last year. There's lots to be proud of in the Star City. We have the Henrietta Lacks statue hidden in plain sight, the arts. There's so much to be proud of. And that is why I was really surprised I just wanted to address again the recent rezoning of Roanoke. And also, I've got to give the city credit where it's due. Their marketing campaign for that was amazing, but it wasn't accurate and it didn't have community engagement. I was talking to a city council member asking them if they had gone to see one of the presentations, the 13 that the city had put up, and the answer was no. And it was premised by saying that it's important for you all to be able to trust your staff. And it is important for you all to be able to trust your staff. But when the people come to you again and again saying they're not getting meaningful community engagement, like when I went to what was presented at the libraries, it was a bunch of Legos and making things about saying well, this will help with the homeless and the housing situation, and a mother-in-law's apartment can be back there. It didn't address the problems that the people showed up, and it was late. You all went late that night. How many nights, how many council meetings do you have to go late with angry people telling you that they have not had the meaningful community engagement? If things are running smoothly, that doesn't happen. I have been in positions on boards and things. I helped turn around the Roanoke Co-op when they were going bankrupt, and you can tell when things aren't going well when people show up en masse because they're irritated. Most people are busy with their lives. We've got things to do. We don't have the time to do other people's jobs. And I'm curious why the Facebook comments have been turned off of the live stream for the first time I'm aware of today. And when was the notice given to the public that there's no evening meeting tonight? There hasn't been an evening meeting for people who work to come and to address you for a month. They have to go another month if they've got concerns before they can talk to you. This is very concerning. We have to do better than this. We're counting on council to provide the supervision of the city staff to make sure things like this don't happen. It's not fair. And man, would I love to see Roanoke get the All-America City Award this year. Wouldn't that be cool? But you know what it's premised on? Democracy and community engagement. And I can't think of one thing worse that Roanoke did this past year than that. A lawyer approached me and brought me into his office and wanted to bring forth a federal case because my constitutional rights had been violated. But he couldn't identify, or we couldn't identify, how I'd been hurt monetarily, because I know how to protect my assets. It would cost around $6,000 to $7,000 to mount a federal case, and I was pretty sure I'd get that money back when we won for a symbolic dollar. Now, who's got time for that? And why should I waste my money doing that? You know, there's a fourth branch of government that sometimes people talk about, sometimes people don't, and that's the media. And I am a journalist. I submitted a FOIA request this morning to see the city's application for the All-America City because I want to see what that's based on. I talked last night with Reverend Woodbury, who said in Florence, South Carolina, the same thing happened to them. And they took it to the All-America City Judicial Review Board, and Florence didn't get the award that year. But the next year, boy, did that community engagement really take off. City staff and management started listening to the people. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up to say how proud I am to be a citizen of Roanoke, and I'm going to do my duty to do my best to report what I've been seeing. And I hope we all work together. Thank you for your time today.
Fred, let me say something, and I don't know what my other colleagues would say there, but I just get so troubled by people coming saying that they don't have a chance to express themselves. We don't have meetings. This council meets twice a month. We're doing more PR in the community now than I've ever seen. I've been sitting up here for 20 years. I've never seen it in terms of information that's out, public hearings, people come up. We stay here till basically 11 o'clock listening to people's views and concerns. Let me just say this. Don't confuse if people come and express their opinions, but we don't agree with their decision. Don't confuse that with not listening. I listen to you, but I disagree with you. You still, we're listening, but we don't necessarily agree, and people think because you don't agree, you're not listening. It's not the case. I just want to share that. We listen, but oftentimes in many instances, we don't necessarily agree. So I just want to make that fact known as we go forward. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, can I also add something? I will also say, Ms. Cathcart, that we offer public hearings, and not every council offer public hearings. They don't even offer the opportunity for folks to come and be heard, and this council makes sure that we give folks an opportunity to come and be heard. Is that not correct, Mr. Spencer, that every council does not offer public hearings?
That is true.
Every public comment.
That is true. We are very liberal in the amount of
Public comment, right.
public comment that we allow.
Okay, I just want to share that with you.
So am I allowed to respond?
Yeah, you can respond.
Okay. There's not enough time in 5 minutes for me to lay out the case that I'm going to be doing in the articles that I write. And I think when you see that, this isn't about that you all sometimes make decisions that I would not have voted for or against. This is about meaningful community engagement. And I hope that when you read my articles, and I hope that you read them, that you'll understand what I'm talking about. I'm all for democracy and majority rule, but there has not been meaningful community engagement, and I think I can make a case. But I appreciate your time, and I know you guys are trying, but I think there's been a real disconnect. And I hope this helps make the connections, and I hope we can move forward in a positive way. So thank you.
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen of City Council. Appreciate your time and your service. My name is Jeff Todd. I'm the owner of Roanoke Mountain Adventures, small business located in Wasena. I'm also a resident of Wasena. I come to you today to talk about the current plan for the Greenway rerouting during the closure of the Wasena Bridge. We've been having many public meetings over many years over this, and I've been a part of them. All along, we were assured that, as it says right now on the Plan Roanoke website, the Greenway would, quote, remain open and accessible during the entirety of the project. We, as a neighborhood, understand and accept that there are going to be some disruptions and things. But when we went to ask for a specific plan to see just what this would look like, it is not what we were told, and it is not meeting that commitment. I don't know if that's because the commitment changed, or if it's because someone that made the plan doesn't understand what the Greenway is. But the Greenway, as you all know, having supported it and funded it and made it happen, is it's a connected and protected pathway for all kinds of users. Everyone in this wonderful city has a chance to go out there on a bike, on foot, on a mobility device, just not in a car, right? It's the one place that we have for that. It's the best piece of public infrastructure that we have. It's essential for community health and wellness and equitable access to the outdoors for thousands of people a day. So it's a backbone of our city's branding and identity, and I think that it is just critical. You all have made this case, and people in the city, Renee Powers, our Greenway and Trail Coordinator, she explained it gets you away from traffic. It's much safer. These are direct quotes. Mayor Lee said the ultimate goal is a fully connected and accessible Greenway. And those were the comments we made when we bridged the gap of the Greenway just a few months ago. Very exciting for everyone, especially in my neighborhood of Wasena. Having just bridged that gap, we cannot now create a new gap, okay? This is a 2.5-year project at minimum, and the current plan calls for a detour, but it is not a detour of the Greenway. You are going to be rerouted off of the Greenway and into public streets along with vehicles of all different kinds. There's no protection and there's no separation. So the continuity, the connectivity of the Greenway will be compromised right in its very center, okay? There are signs exhorting drivers to please slow down. This is not sufficient. There is not even a change to the speed limit. We need separation and protection. And we need to make sure that we don't have a half-mile long gap in the middle of the Greenway for this lengthy period of time. I'm also concerned about the impact it's going to have on motorists coming through our neighborhood trying to access the business. Tractor trailers delivering supplies to our local businesses, which happens all day, every day. We've got a construction crew. You drive over there now. They're setting up. They mean business. There's some big machinery coming and going. We cannot have that interacting with children, with people in disability devices, things of that nature, accessing the Greenway, and it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be calamitous. Emergency vehicles might get called down, but they're going to have a hard time getting to where they need to go if they're driving through Greenway traffic in addition to parked cars on each side of the road. Now, fortunately, if the city of Roanoke agrees with me on this, there is a pathway to making this better. We don't need to accept this, okay? There's an alternative. We can reallocate existing street parking, which is very easy to do. We can talk to those neighbors. We can say, what can we do to ameliorate any issues you have? You have a driveway, you have alley access. The answer is yes. I've spoken to these people, but they deserve to have their voice heard too. But there are solutions in place. We have resources. We have Transportation Department with a Vision Zero coordinator. We have a Greenway Commission that has thoughtful views on this matter if we listen. And I think it's not expensive. It's not difficult. This is not asking anyone to design earth-shattering infrastructure. We're asking for very simple solutions. We need to call upon these resources and make a common sense solution, but we have to keep the Greenway protected and connected. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You want to sponsor?
Mr. Powell, is there anybody in the city manager's office that could respond to that, his concern?
Yeah, we've actually received communications from the Greenway Commission, as did you this morning.
Are you in a position to respond now, or you rather wait?
No, I mean, we'll be talking with them further. This is in part, there was some reference to the folks with parking, so it was Some of what's been identified was in part to try to balance some of those requests for parking, but we'll have further conversations with them as we progress toward the detour, so, yeah. I mean, again, just this morning, we received kind of
Okay.
the detailed information that came in, so we'll take a look at that, so. And I've got his contact information, so we'll include, he's already included in that kind of mailing and stuff, but we'll make sure that.
Yeah, sometimes I just like for the public to also hear, because when they put that information out there, or whether it's accurate or inaccurate, I think sometimes it's good for the public to hear some of the other
Yeah,
side of it to make sure.
At its point right now, the detour is the result of all of those meetings that were referenced, so, we're about to get to a point
Get
where
to
the
a good
detour will have
point,
to go into
okay.
effect, and I think now people are questioning the effectiveness of that detour, so now we're gonna go back and take a look at what that is, but we still have to balance all of those competing interests in
Sure,
that area.
sure.
And that's what we'll be working with them,
Okay.
on.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty?
Mayor Lee, I was just going to offer too, and I know at one of our previous briefings, they had spoken about that it was a very small cost to add those protected barriers that went along 9th Street. I hope that will be considered as part of it. If we can't find an alternative route, maybe we can find something temporary that will help separate.
You're referring to kind of the delineators that we.
Yeah, the bollards.
Yeah. And obviously, not only will we have those communications with folks that have expressed concerns, we'll of course keep you all informed as we go through that process and that discussion.
Does that conclude, Madam Clerk? Okay, our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by members of City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of the item. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. I want to call your attention to 3 requests for closed meeting, one from my office to discuss 3 upcoming vacancies on the Roanoke City School Board expiring June 30th, 2024. One from Councilmember White Board, who is the chair of the Council Personnel Committee, to discuss a personnel matter, and one from our city attorney, Mr. Spencer, to consult with legal counsel regarding actual litigation. Well, I need a motion on that.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Aye. And Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the consent agenda is approved. All right, our next agenda item is public hearings. A proposal of the city of Roanoke to authorize the issuance of general obligation public improvement bond funds for the construction of an expansion to and renovations of the Hotel Roanoke and Conference Center. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution. Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you read the title paragraph?
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of not to exceed $14 million aggregate principal amount of general obligations of the City of Roanoke, Virginia, in the form of general obligation public improvement bonds of the city, for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of construction of an expansion to and renovations of the Hotel Roanoke and Conference Center for the city, including related design and architectural and engineering services, fixing the form, denomination, and certain other details of such bonds, and otherwise providing with respect to the issuance, sale, and delivery of such bonds.
All right, I'm pleased to recognize the city manager, or I see Mr. Brian Mann.
Yeah, I think so we've talked about this periodically, and of course, the Hotel Roanoke Conference Commission has talked about this at length, but I think I will ask Brian if he would come up and add anything just to kind of help explain what's going on here and why, and then also David Rose with our financial advisors, Davenport, is here also to answer any questions that you might have tied to the actual bond issuance itself. Thank you.
Mayor Lee, Council. So we are here today asking for general obligation bonds
to help fund, or to fund the expansion of the Hotel Roanoke Conference Center. I believe Mr. Cal gave you a kind of quick synopsis of what we're trying to do over there. Is expanding by a minimum of 10% of the original square footage of the conference center, which was 86,434 square feet, meaning we would need to do 8,640, about 8,600 square feet of a new project. And this is in order to continue to carry forward the 2% return on the sales tax from the Facilities Act for the life of the obligation of these new bonds. So that's kind of where we're at. It's looking probably somewhere between a $11 and a $13 million project. Even though this is a $14 million do not exceed, there is a cost of the issuance of the bond also wrote into this GOB.
The only thing I'll add, and Brian just said this, but obviously it's the proceeds from the rebate on the tax, on the sales tax, coming into the conference center, which is what is used to actually retire the debt, much as it was done when the conference center was originally constructed. The conference center commission has the ability to issue debt, but our credit rating is obviously stronger than theirs, so there's a benefit of us issuing that, but the retirement is coming through those proceeds. And then Brian, you want to mention kind of what the improvement that's
Sure.
being envisioned is?
So there's a north courtyard. You've probably seen it where we put up the Christmas lights each year. We're going to be enclosing that. Something similar to the Kogod Smithsonian. If you've ever seen that in DC, it should be a nice architectural glass steel structure to some. We're not really sure exactly what it'll be. We put an RFP on the street, and that will come back to us on the 18th. So in a couple days, we'll get to see some renderings from some groups. We had 8 or 9 people come to the walkthrough, so we're hoping we get at least 2 to 3 solid submissions. And the other part of that is an expansion off the front lawn, which really looks more like the back lawn, but it's the one that's near the walk bridge. And we're going to enclose that patio space there that will allow for weddings, indoor-outdoor events. We're also going to put lawn amenities such as, maybe pickleball, fire pits, bocce ball, and terraced patios back there, and really taking that incredible magnolia tree, which is on the front lawn, and making that the showpiece and the centerpiece of that back expansion. What the front expansion will do is the enclosure. It's a multi-purpose flex space, which allows us now to really go out and market high-class and high-end weddings that we've not been able to, and then really just looking at more pre-function and also more exhibition space for when larger conferences come in and they want to be able to do an exhibition hall or something to that. So really just solidifying our place in the market. As you know, as new entrants come into the market in Virginia, we are the marquee place, and we want to continue to be that marquee event.
All right, let me go to Ms. Whiteboard first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's so exciting, Brian.
Yes.
It really is exciting. The expansion itself, what kind of additional revenue do you think it will generate just with the expansion?
Well, it's hard to say, but we did do feasibility on the original, for the original project, and it came back that it was feasible for a rooftop expansion and for this, but due to the fact that there was going to be business interruption, the commission found that it was probably not the best call to go with the rooftop. So I believe there's an additional cost per square foot as far as additional revenues. I want to say $364 a square foot additional revenue per square foot.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Ms. Joe, I'm sorry, we got a public hearing here on this. Are there any citizens signed up to speak on this item, Madam Clerk?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
But Mayor, if you could still open the public hearing,
Yeah. Well, we're
ask
gonna
that question again, then close it,
all right, we're gonna open.
so I can keep bond counsel happy.
We're gonna,
I'm
okay,
just excited to be up here and not talking about parking today. So.
we're gonna open the public hearing, and since there are no citizens wishing to be heard, we're gonna close the public hearing. And at this time, I'm gonna recognize the Vice Mayor who had a question.
Hi, Jeff.
So, you opened the door. No, I wanted to ask, with these expansions, is the parking at the Hotel Roanoke sufficient? Or are you looking at ways to expand parking options there?
We originally this project's been off and on the table for many years now, going back to 2008. If you remember what happened in 2008, we had the financial disaster. Then, believe it or not, we had this thing called COVID. We were getting ready to go forward again, and COVID hit. So this is the third time this has been back on the board for the conference center. Parking was originally part of those original conversations. However, looking at our occupancy rate within Park Roanoke and looking at Tower Garage and looking at the Higher Ed Center and looking at Gainsborough Garage, which is all really within, say, 150 yards of the conference center, we feel as though the occupancy rates are low enough where we could really utilize those and see a lift also in Park Roanoke, but really have a direct connection right to the hotel. It's nothing but a walk across the walk bridge and you're directly connected to Tower Garage, which is quite a few spaces.
Yeah, and I think part of the key to that is just letting people know, publicizing that. I also know, I think I read that this weekend there were like 24,000 visitors to the Civic Center because of the rail yard dogs games, and then and this is cumulative.
Sure.
And then the dinosaur attraction. But, hopefully we're going to continue to see an increase of people coming to the Civic Center, to the hotel, to downtown. And so I just, as we're navigating, capacity and just thinking ahead about what we might need to consider for increased parking options.
And we are working with the dogs right now for overflow parking for the games for next year at the Elmwood Park Garage and the surface lot. And we're getting ready to sign an MOU with Bob and the dogs for that, to allow for excess parking.
Great, thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions?
Mr. Wallace.
All right, let me go down. I think Ms.
You can go, then I don't mind. He says he was before me, if you don't mind, Mayor.
Okay, y'all got peace, y'all have peace in that. You go ahead.
Okay. Brian, I just wanted to know, I know we're expanding the convention center. Is there any renovation of the hotel or expansion of the hotel that's going to be going on with that?
Actually, right now, there's an expansion, not expansion, but a renovation of all the rooms, and it's a $14 million renovation that is slotted to finish up around October. So it's really a great synergy going on here. With the rooms renovation along with this project, it really is going to just really make the Hotel Roanoke just the marquee hotel and conference center in Southwest Virginia and beyond.
Thank you.
Those room renovations, just to be clear, those room renovations are being paid for by the LLC that actually owns the hotel.
Sorry, Bob, I should have been a little more. Nothing to do with the conference center, nothing to do with this project here, something totally separate.
All right, Ms. Moon.
Thank you. I had opportunity to talk with Brian Wells some time back about the construction of the front side where they were going to do the enclosure.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know when maybe I missed it, when is the construction scheduled to come on?
Well,
Do you have
right
an
now, we're in
anticipated date?
So we just
timeframe?
put out the RFP. We'll receive back initial architectural drawings and concepts on the 18th. After those come in and we choose an architect, at that point, we will put an RFP for the construction out on the street. So it could take a year.
Okay.
The main thing is that, and Tim can explain this, is that we issue these bonds before June 30th, which allows us to legally be able to receive this 2% benefit back from the state for the life of these new bonds, which really takes off the pressure from city council and the general fund. This is something totally separate.
So you anticipate in about 24 months is that on both sides?
Yes, so on the front side, what we call the front lawn, which looks more like the back lawn, is the one that's adjacent to the walk bridge.
Right.
And then the other one is adjacent to Wells Avenue.
So which one would go first?
That I don't know. It would be congruent and
Okay.
going together at the same time.
Okay.
I would assume that would be the case.
And are you all, is the hotel looking at doing some kind of campaign to help offset the cost, or is all the cost coming from the 14 million?
The hotel, I can't speak for the hotel,
Okay.
but I believe their funding came through Virginia Tech, as they are the owners of that entity. So I don't want to speak out of turn for them. But for
Okay.
us, it would be through these bonds, and the proceeds will be paid back through this Facilities Act.
Yeah, I was just curious as to the total cost, what they anticipate the total cost of.
Their total cost was $14 million.
No, I mean, all together on their side and the city side is just a total cost of 14 million.
No, the 14 million for the rooms, ours will be somewhere between 11 and 13 million.
Which was the 13 million you
Yeah.
mentioned, so it's still close to 14. And what I would ask Bob, if possible, once this is set in and you've got got the RFPs out and you've got the, the architectural on board, the construction, can we get a presentation perhaps from Brian Wells to come and present out and show
Yeah,
us
it
what's
would.
being done over there?
It would actually, I mean, yes, it would technically be Brian Mann, because
Yeah,
Brian,
okay.
so the way that, and it's a very bizarre organization in terms of ownership, so,
Yeah.
so obviously Virginia Tech and the LLC own and operate the hotel, and they have a separate body that actually
Right.
manages that. Then there's the Hotel Roanoke Conference Center Commission, which is separate from that, but has representation from it. Brian Wells actually works for a private company.
Right.
Benchmark, of course, and they operate on our behalf, both of those facilities. So absolutely, we could have both Brians here to do that type of
Yes.
presentation. Absolutely.
Yes, I would
We could
like to
also,
have both.
if appropriate, and I think it could be, we could also ask for representation from the Hotel Roanoke Conference Commission, from the commission itself. We could have the chair of the commission be a part of that presentation also.
Yeah, that would be
So,
good.
yeah.
I just wanted to be able to hear more. And
Yeah,
I'm sure the
absolutely.
public would like to know more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we
And, and those conference meetings are also open, but nobody actually knows, it seems, that those are always ongoing. So certainly, we can take what's presented at those meetings, once they act on it, bring it in, so we can do that, so, yeah.
Yeah, share those responses with you guys. We'd like for you to see those.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to see those
Yeah.
renderings and see what it's going to look like.
Yeah, we could bring that firm in once we select them, and also have them be part of the briefing for you.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Peters?
Thank you for the presentation and getting this together before our timeline runs out on July 1st. How long do we expect or anticipate before these bonds will be paid off?
I believe we're running schedules of 30 years.
That's how long we have, but that's how long that we expect with the rate of return that we're getting currently?
Do you want to speak on the schedules a little bit, or? Sure. David's, he's the brains of the operation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So, Mr. Brady, we're anticipating issuing these bonds again and closed by the end of May, and then there'll be 30-year bonds based upon solely the revenues of the 2%. So it has nothing to do with the general fund. And what we're going to do is to maximize the amount of dollars that Brian and the commission has for this, is we're going to, in effect, structure the debt so over time the payments will increase as those revenues we expect to increase. We've made an estimate, working with Brian and his folks, that those dollars that start at roughly $550,000 will increase no more than 2% per year. So it's actually lower growth expectation than inflation. So we're setting up as 30-year bonds to maximize the dollars.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also say that there are some safety nets built into the schedule for repayment, just in case. You never know what can happen. But we do have that reserve fund, interest that's made off that reserve. There's a few buckets that aren't even in the schedule that make this a really good investment.
In the event there were going to be any other future expansion, it wouldn't be possible unless the code was amended to extend the authority to a later point in time, correct?
That's correct. And it might be something that might be something to be prudent to look at further down the road. That's something City Council may wish to want to look at, to put on the legislative agenda.
If you could just remind me what the square footage was originally and what the addition is, and then what the new square footage will be.
Sure, I didn't mean to bumble over my figures before. It was 86,434 square feet originally. So it has to be about 8,600, which is 10% of the original square footage. That was one avenue. The other avenue, you could have done renovation,
About a 10% cost.
which is 50% of the original cost, which was $12.8 million.
For the pieces that aren't being pursued right now, like including the rooftop expansion, would that be large enough to fit the 10% in the future with this new square footage that's added, or would we have to seek an even larger project if we were going to pursue that? Because I think it was,
I believe it would be. I believe it would be, yes.
okay.
We were looking at about a 20,000 square foot addition to the rooftop, so if that would reign true and continue forward, I believe the new numbers would make sense, yes.
All right, I'm just thinking further ahead than where we are now, but I'm excited this is being done today. That's all I have, Mayor Lee.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Sounds like we're ready to vote on this resolution. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the resolution passes. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. And Sharon, thank you, sir. All right, item number 6 is petitions and communications. 6.1 is Roanoke Valley Resource Authority to present its proposed 2024-2025 annual budget. John Langford, Chief Executive Officer, is the spokesperson. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution approving the annual budget of the Roanoke Valley Resource Authority for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 upon certain terms and conditions.
All right. Any discussion? Do you want to hear Mr. Langford briefing first, or?
Sure.
All right, we'll hear you. Go ahead and hear you, John.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lee, Vice Mayor Cobb, members of council. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I'm about 4.5 months into this new opportunity and humbled and privileged to be here with you all. I've about 25 years of local government experience. I've been in a lot of council chambers, and those are the most comfortable chairs I've sat in, so thank you. Those are nice and a great addition. So I have with me today Jeremy Garrett and Brad Brewer. Jeremy's our Director of Technical Operations, Brad's our Finance Manager, and I'll just give you a quick update on some activities at the authority and then talk a little bit about our budget and then be happy to answer any questions that you may have. We just finished construction of a new cell at Smith Gap Landfill, a little bit north of a $10 million investment, and this afternoon we've begun placing a fluff layer in the bottom of that cell to protect the new liner. We think that will give us about 5 more years of airspace. We have 2 more cells to develop after that, and we'll be going through some master planning processes with consulting engineers to help us plan out the future of Smith Gap Landfill, and we'll be engaging with you and your staff as well. You mentioned earlier the volunteerism. I'd like to thank the folks that serve on the RVRA board. They dedicate their time to our meetings. Mr. Broadus Fitzpatrick, who just stepped down, had 4 years of service. Mr. Mike McAvoy has just joined as a citizen rep, and then Mr. Jeffrey Powell, who is on your staff here at the city of Roanoke. So we're very thankful for the partnership and the relationship that we have with those folks. One other neat project that we have going on out there that you may not be aware of, we're in the process now, construction just started, of conversion of the methane gas to a renewable natural gas. So we're capturing some of that byproduct of the landfill, converting it to an energy source, and then have a partnership with a private firm that we have a lease with on site. They're building a facility there, and that will bring some financial benefit to the authority as well. That may ease some of the budget burden that we have at the Resource Authority. So be happy to answer any questions as we go through very quickly. Our physical 24-year budget was $15.9 million. Physical 25 is $16.7 million. Specifically, it's $835,797 increase, or 5.2% over the prior fiscal year. It's balanced, and it's balanced primarily by deferring equipment replacement and investment in capital, with the caveat that we are setting aside $1.7 million approximately to go to the next cell development, so we'll have cash on hand to fund it. Included in that balanced budget is a proposed municipal rate increase of $1.50 per ton, It's a 2.7% increase, and then coinciding with that is a commercial rate increase of $1.75 per ton. So that'll take the municipal rates from 55 to 56.50, and the commercial rate from 65.75 to 67.50 per ton. That new revenue from the rate increases will generate approximately $164,000 for the authority going towards our budget this coming year. Of that $164,000, $69,000 of that is the physical impact to the city of Roanoke. The Resource Authority Board has set a public hearing to amend its rates and adopt the budget at its June meeting, and we would respectfully ask that City Council adopt the RVRA budget as presented. Thank you.
All right. Any questions or discussion from Ms.
Yes, sir.
Green?
Am I missing a measure to adopt based on what he just said?
Page 100.
Page 100.
Budget.
I've got the budget, but,
I think it's all together.
It's right at the end, page 100 out of 184.
You have the printed copies that are
okay, I didn't get it. Okay, that answers my
It's
question.
in the agenda.
Okay, it's not in mine. That's all right. Okay, then I'm good. I was just looking for the resolution. Thank you.
It's on page 100 of the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay, no problem. I just have the written pages. Thank you.
All right, we ready to vote on this resolution, Madam Clerk?
Yes. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Aye,
Thank you all.
and the resolution passes. Thank you. At this time, I'm pleased to recognize our city manager to introduce the briefings.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have 3 briefings today, and if it's okay with the council, I'm going to rearrange these slightly so they maybe make a little more sense as we flow. And I'd actually like to begin with the FY24 March monthly budget report. Then we'll move to the HUD annual plan, and then into the recommended fiscal year 25 budget. And so if that's okay, I'm going to have Andrea actually come up, and she'll present to you the March monthly budget report. And Andrea, it should be on the tab down the bottom.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. I know you're excited. It's tax day. What better day to present a March update? These dollars that you will see.
Pay taxes, man, I'm paying thousands of dollars.
Are through March the 31st. That is 3/4 of the way through the year, or 75%. If you're a finance geek, you love April the 15th. It's such a great day. Other folks, maybe not so much. My presentation is actually easy today. We get to talk about revenue and expenses. The best thing to say about where we're at today, 75% through the year, is that our revenues are showing healthy signs. If we look down our list of revenues, you'll see that our local real estate taxes are looking great. They're very strong through the end of March. Payments were due April the 5th, so we will see some revenue collection in April, so just past this date. If we look at personal property tax, they appear to be lack. However, our due date for those are not until the end of May, so that would look normal and where they should be today. So if we look at our revenues, we can say healthy is probably the best way to describe those. If we look at individual non-local taxes, if you'll look across the top, our permits, fees, and license are showing great growth. That is actually outperforming our target. The revenues and use of money is really attributed to interest and the fact that the rates are high. So we actually have funds available through ARPA funding. Our bank balance looks healthy, our interest looks healthy. So again, we have lots of things to say that are positive about revenues.
Expenditures, sometimes we're not so sure about those. If we look at this, we're actually tracking right on schedule for 3/4 of the year. So when I say revenues are healthy, expenditures are in line, which makes my report very, very easy. So I can say, hope everybody's filed their taxes. We're looking good through March. We will have a better idea at the end of April and, of course, May, once we collect our personal property taxes. Any questions? You guys made it easy. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at the revenue summary for your non-local taxes, and I believe it was touched on before, and so you can help me with this. I'm looking at your actuals for the permits, fees, and licenses. I see the actual year-to-date for '23 was $997,000, but yet when I look at the actual for year-to-date for this fiscal year, you're $2 million. I just see such a big increase, and I'm just trying to
Yeah, I think that's actually predominantly attributed to the increase in the permit fees. If you remember, the permit fees had not been adjusted since 2005, something like that, and
So
that
this is
last
just
year-
coming from adjustments where you're catching things up,
That's what I
pretty
believe,
much,
yes.
trying to say, okay. Yeah, and I was just waiting on them to come back.
Yeah, and some of that too also could be associated with the scale of the projects we've had recently. If you think of Carillion Clinic, you think of the apartment
Okay.
complexes, could also be a combination of those two items, just because they've been on such a massive scale. It's probably both of those things.
It's just not something that's going to continue is where I'm going with that. You get this
Well,
big pot of money
yeah.
that starts coming in.
In some ways, I kind of hope it continues.
I wish it
Yeah,
would, that's
'cause
what
it
I'm
would
saying.
mean
I'm just
is-
seeing that big increase from 900 and some thousand over to 2 million. So I'm just trying to see if that's a trend of good things on the horizon.
Yeah, because it would really mean that we're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of construction activity associated with, or at least large-scale projects.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
those
we
kinds
got
of-
Riverdale
But yes,
Yeah.
I think you'll see in the budget, our projections don't necessarily assume we're going to see, that kind of increase year
Right.
over year. and stuff. So, yeah.
Right. And the same thing, I guess, for your revenue from use of money and properties, you kind of went.
Use of money is really the interest that we're receiving
interest
off
that you-
of fund balance, basically.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that one we will not see repeated, because it's really
Oh,
tied.
okay.
A lot of it's tied
Daggone
to,
it, okay.
well, a lot of it's tied to the $60+ million that we've had over the last couple of years in the bank from ARPA that we've
Right, the
we've
interest
awarded out,
rate.
but while it was in the bank, we're earning interest. Those
Right.
dollars obviously won't be there any longer.
I think that's, okay. Go ahead.
I just had a question about the sales tax. I noticed that it's at 57%. Is that a normal on pace, or are we?
We
a little
typically
bit
see
behind?
a little bit of a bump in May, so we're slightly lower here. We do anticipate, if historical trends are true, that we will see a bump in May and have a better idea, of course, at the end of June.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Any other? Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne, are you doing the? Okay, very good. Well, we will now turn to the presentation of the proposed HUD annual plan for 2025. Thank you. Yeah, they all have like the same, basically same title attached to them.
Good afternoon. I'm Katie Kennedy with the Community Resources Division. The City of Roanoke is an entitlement community and receives funds from HUD each year. Our office administers those funds for a variety of services provided around the city, and each year the city presents an annual plan to HUD detailing how we'll utilize those funds to support community programs. This year's 2024 annual plan outlines the use of over $4.9 million in CDBG, home, ESG, CDBG, CV, and home ARP funding. These funds will support an array of housing, homeless prevention, public services, economic development, and neighborhood and community development programs. HUD funds are allocated to the city every year. It's based off of a formula that HUD uses that includes our population and income levels, among other things. Right now, we don't have our final allocations from HUD, so we are basing our estimated numbers off of the national data from the congressional bills that were done, and that includes level funding for CDBG and ESG. We believe home will have about, nationally, is a 17% cut, so our numbers are based off of that. And then for CDBG, CV, and the home ARP, those are funds that we were allocated previously, and we still have several years to spend those. So those are carryover funds that we still have eligible. And so that leaves us with about $4.9 million. In addition to the $4.9 million we'll be using of HUD funds, the programs and projects that you'll hear me talk about are also leveraging over $13 million in other funds. That can include some local grants, private foundation money, some other federal funds, also things like volunteer hours and other in-kind services. Our annual plan process kicks off in the fall, where we hold a how to apply and a public meeting to describe to listen to our stakeholders in the community to hear what are the services and needs that they feel are in our community, and also explain to our potential applicants on what they need to do to apply for the services. We use an online software system for our applicants to apply. Once we receive all the applications, our staff reviews those applications for eligibility to make sure that these funds are pretty strict in their eligibility and what you're allowed to use them for and what you can't. So we make sure that all the projects that are reviewed are eligible for funding from HUD. We also review them for risk to see how risky of a investment they are to provide funds. After we do that, we then host a citizen review committee, so all of the applications are reviewed by citizens. We then hold a meeting with the Citizen Review Committee where they discuss the applications, ask us questions, and then they take their final scores and rank the projects, and that is how funding is decided, is based off of those rankings. And then currently we have a public comment period open, so we are accepting public comments until May the 9th, and we also have a public hearing where we'll also accept comments. After we get all of that information, we'll pull all that details together, and then we'll submit the final plan to HUD. One of the largest amounts of funds are going to our housing development. That's for projects for new construction or rehabilitation of vacant houses, so that's for new home ownership. It also includes a lot of housing rehabilitation for owner-occupied structures for people who need repair in their homes. This also includes our home ARP money, which we are using for affordable housing development for individuals experiencing homelessness. One of the projects is also separate from that, is affordable housing for seniors. In addition to the housing development, we are using some of the funds for streetscape improvements in the southeast neighborhood. Also ADA curb cutout so that you can use the sidewalks and are able to cross the streets, so they can cut those out so they're ADA accessible. Covered bus shelters, this also provides some staffing for some of our code enforcement, and then also a commercial facade improvement program. A lot of those projects I just talked about, $1.1 million of those projects will be focused in the Belmont-Fallon target area. And so you'll see in that specific target area, a lot of those streetscapes, the facade program is in the target area. A lot of our new home ownership and housing rehab will be focused in that Belmont-Fallon target area. We're also able to use CDBG dollars for public service. This is the area where that is the highest competition, and we have to make the most cuts because it is capped at 15%. That's a regulation that HUD puts on us. So we're capped at 15% of our funds being able to use for public service. But this provides for programs for abused and neglected children. It also provides for some mental health counseling, pharmacy support, and homeless prevention. And we have a whole section for homeless prevention. That's for our ESG, which is our Emergency Solutions Grant. That's for housing prevention, rapid rehousing, shelter operations, and also the homeless management system, which is how our nonprofit partners and community coordinate the services they're providing to individuals experiencing homelessness. Additionally, the last category is our planning administration. We have a community resources division with several staff members. It covers their time for their salaries, their fringe benefits, training, just kind of the day-to-day of making sure that the funds are appropriately used. And we just wanted to say thank you to all of our nonprofits, our stakeholders, and our public, our citizen review committees for helping us go through this process and make sure that we're utilizing these funds in the best way that we can to benefit the citizens of Roanoke, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, let's move on.
Thank you. Under your planning and administration, you mentioned your $785,000, and that's for staff. Is that for your staff of the HCR administrator and 5 community resource specialists?
It is, and it's a little, what it looks like is it's going to be a little bit more than that because we have that home ARPA money, which is a significant amount of money that is not allocated to be used until 2030. So some of that does have to last.
So none of these staff is permanent employees of the city. You all are under grant funding?
All of the staff and the community resources are funded through entitlement funds or for some of our other competitive grants that we have.
Okay, and is that also in addition to or part of the funding that you're using over in the target area where you have for the staff, where you're using for code enforcement?
Code enforcement is a project, it's not an administration, it is a project just like the other projects.
But some of the funding is being used for administrative costs for the project?
It's for staff, time, but it is for the service that they're providing. It's not considered an administrative cost, so it wouldn't cost, covers their time to provide that service.
Is it the same code enforcement staff being used to cover over in the target area as well as being used throughout the city?
No,
there's no additional staff?
It's the same amount of code enforcement staff throughout the city, and several of those staff members, they divide up into zones, and there's some very specific requirements for code enforcement that we follow to delineate areas that they're allowed to provide CDBG-funded code enforcement.
But no CDBG funding can be used to hire additional code enforcement for the target area so that...
No, we wouldn't hire any additional staff. It's a separate project that they applied for funding for those staff members.
But the city could have still used the money that's being used for the administrative staff to be used as additional resources
for code
in
enforcement.
the target area.
No, they could not.
Why not?
The code office, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong here.
No, I don't mean for the code office. I'm just talking about the CDBG funding, period, that's being allocated. I know it's broken down into using it for administrative costs, but couldn't it have, instead of putting most of it in administrative costs, been used for other services that could have been placed out there in the target area per se?
So what we have is that our staff and the administrative costs that we have certain limits that are set for HUD, and so that those are where those come from. So CDBG is 20%, I think ESG is 7.5%, and so that covers the staff that take reports. We do all of the background paperwork to make sure that the nonprofits that get reimbursed, so that's what those staff dollars are used for.
Yeah, I understand what it's for. I'm just asking the question, could, instead of using that, although it's there, could we use the money elsewhere than using it just for the administration piece? And my last question is, on your citizen...
Did you answer that question? Well, you answered, you said
She answered it the best she could, and I just moved off of it. She answered it as best she could. The other question I have, and it's my last question, and it deals with your with the process. and you had the citizen review piece, citizen comment. What all are you doing to engage citizens for the comment period from April the 8th through May the 9th? What are you doing to engage the public to comment?
So one of the basic requirements we have to do that's required by HUD is we do a newspaper publishing, so we've done that. We'll also post on social media. We've sent it out to all of our citizen review, which is a separate part of that, so we've sent it out to the citizen review team, so they have that information, and we also hold the public comment period, and then we also post it at the libraries.
And that's it? You haven't used any of the additional news media to get it out into the community to engage? And the reason why I asked that, when I was in D.C. back in March, I'm on the federal advocacy, and we had a report come from the HUD staff, and they stressed the importance of trying to get localities to engage more citizens in the process of HUD funding and to have understanding of it. So we do the minimum amount, but we haven't raised the bar to go over and beyond. And I'm just hoping at some point we'll go over and beyond and just reach out
And just to be
further.
clear, what we do is in excess of what HUD requires. For example, the social media that is discussed is in excess of that piece of it. And the question regarding media is here, so hopefully they'll cover
Right, but
this
between,
piece.
since it started on April the 8th and going to May 9th, the media's here now, but it's been a week now. And all I'm saying is that we may do just a little bit more social media, but everyone is not on social media. And I just wish we would use more radio time, airtime, to just get the word out to the public to say that, because some just don't know. And I'm just trying to, over the years, as long as we have had HUD funding, a lot of them do not know about CDBG money and the other parts, the home or the emergency solution piece. And I just want them to know more about what's going on in their city, what's available for them to be used to help them with their living conditions.
You said radio, and what else would you suggest?
I was just, mainly I was talking about the radio, but even on the news media, encourage them to announce it, even though they are here, but in just reaching out to them to say, would you please do this or this or this? I think please is good.
I appreciate that feedback. We'll definitely take that, and for the annual plan,
Take it under advisement.
we'll definitely work on that. For letting citizens know about the services that are provided, we do have a significant amount of outreach. We have an outreach team with Let's Say Roanoke, who's out there telling people, and then we also have collaborations where we're working, but making sure citizens are aware of the services that are available, but I will
It's just that we have about 100-some thousand citizens, and that's a large amount of people to try to reach. And I just want us to do a little bit more of trying to reach the masses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I certainly think that we on council can do our part by spreading the word and engaging people. And I know a lot of agencies in your plan, we see these agencies who are doing the work, and I know they also help spread the word. And sometimes citizens engage and sometimes they don't. So the more we can communicate, the better. But I did want to ask you, I noticed on page, I think it's 4 and 5 of the report, which kind of breaks down the agencies that are funded. Do you happen to know what the total was between what we're currently funding and what was requested, and then the difficult decision that the review board had to make in terms of paring that down?
So we had approximately over $3.1 million in request and about $2.5 million to allocate.
Okay. And relatively speaking over time, I know with ESG funding, it's been pretty flat for a long time. In fact, I heard recently related to homeless services that we're getting pretty much the same amount we did in 1992, but the cost of doing everything has gone up. So we're able to do much less. Is that true across the board with CDBG and some of the other components of HUD funding?
So right now, we've seen pretty level funding through CDBG and ESG. We saw the cut in home pretty significantly at 17%, and the forecast for the next year looks fairly similar.
Okay. and this may or may not be your role, but I'm thinking about council and our legislative agenda. I know these are federal funds, so, and sometimes when we think about our legislative agenda, we think more about our work with the General Assembly. But I think we also have important connections federally, and whether it's our congressmen or U.S. senators, to advocate for increases in HUD funding. And I know this is an ongoing ask, but based on what you're seeing and where the needs are, where would you see us advocating for increases in funding? Would you say across the board, or would you say more CDBG, ESG, just based on what you're hearing?
I think the biggest cuts we had were in our public service area, and then our ESG is pretty much state level. They had to make a couple of cuts because the Citizen Review Committee, who is the brick for the ESG funds, saw the value in one of the programs and thought that some of the other ones had to take cuts. So they've pretty much been doing even funding for a very long time.
Okay, so the public service area. Yeah, okay, thank you, Kate.
I mean, we could use the money no matter what, but
Right.
those are probably the areas.
Well, I think that was my point, is that, you know, we're really focusing on housing, on the services that can accompany that housing. And I think all of these agencies that applied do great work in the community, but we're limited on how much we can fund, and so we have to prioritize it based on what our current needs are, and that makes it challenging. Thanks for your work.
All right, any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mayor and Council, good afternoon, and I apologize ahead of time because this will be a lengthy presentation. So you have both the, I think you actually have several documents in front of you. One of those is a hard copy of the presentation I'll be going through, also a copy of the budget, that's the recommended budget, that's the bound book, and then also a couple of other documents that I'll make reference to as we go through this. And of course, we will be meeting with you all over the next 3 days, individually or 2 at a time, in order to dig deeper into this. And that, of course, is leading up to a budget workshop that I'll cover kind of at the end with this. So this is really kind of the introduction of this item. So first, let me say that it is, I don't know how often, I don't know if it's as rare as an eclipse, but today, of course, we're presenting the recommended budget on tax day, and I know taxes get a bad rap, and I understand that. However, it is important to point out, and you'll see this throughout this presentation, that it is taxes that pay for our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters, our accountants, our engineers, street sweepers, sanitation workers, our parks, our libraries, our streets, our bridges, our greenways, and so much more. And so hopefully, as we go through this, you'll see how those dollars have been put to good use, as well as how they will be put to good use as we work our way through this presentation. I do want to thank the mayor and the council for your role in setting strategic priorities and your engagement during the various retreats and budget briefings. We really cannot actually do the budget, obviously, without that upfront guidance and direction from you all, and I thank you for that. I also want to thank the budget staff for the work that they did, and I think most of them are in the room. If Trinity and Corey are here, and Jason, and Alicia is back in the office, so I want to acknowledge them and thank them. I know in the case of Trinity, he was here over the weekend as I was working over the weekend at home, sending him files, and he was working on those. So certainly want to thank them and their work that they've all put into getting to this point. And we certainly would not be where we are without that. So want to thank them for that. That's interesting. It's not moving that way. So as far as the agenda for the briefing, we'll go through the process for the budget development, as well as give a really quick glance at FY24, because I think it's important to kind of see how the investments have been made over the current year that we're in before we talk about the subsequent year, and then the recommended budget and its priorities in terms of revenues, expenditures, investments, capital improvements, and so on. The development, the process associated with the budget development, again, you'll be very familiar with this, and have participated in much of this as we've gone through. Of course, it actually begins back in the autumn with the strategic planning retreat that you all participate in, and that's where we really revisit at that point what it is that you have identified as priorities. Understandably, those priorities, and these again are things that we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but you know them well, education, community safety, infrastructure, and so on. Those generally don't change a whole lot, although they have been adjusted by councils over the years as they work their way through. But there are certainly emphasis that are talked about, and I'll talk about some of those as we work our way through the presentation, and those are critical for us to know going into the budget development. Following the strategic planning retreat, of course, is the budget planning retreat, and that's where, whereas in the other case we talk about the strategies or the strategic priorities and the goals for the council, when we get into the budget planning, that's where we really talk about things associated with what we think are going to be happening in terms of revenue, along with what expenditures might look like. And it's also where we have begin the conversation with you all regarding tax rates and other activities with that. Those two retreats really set the stage for what ends up in working our way through the budget. And of course, you all know, beginning in January with the budget briefing around the revenue estimates, we come back monthly from January up until this point in providing briefings along the way where we're sharing additional information, refining revenue projections and so on, but also along the way asking questions for additional guidance as we shape the budget. Behind the scenes, while that's going on, of course, is the work that the staff is doing, taking that information. That's what's actually generating the questions. It's what's actually allowing us to begin balancing the budget. You all know that from the moment we receive the ideas and requests coming from departments, we're out of balance. And so we have to quickly, over those next several months, work at what the requests have been to get us into balance. So those council briefings are essential as a part of that discussion as we work our way through those processes. And of course, the recommended budget becomes then the end result of all of those efforts. All of these graphics that are on the screen right now are just representative of each of those steps that we take along the way. The identification of priorities, the completion and adoption of the strategic plan. We always are falling back on our comprehensive plan and other policies that have been adopted along through the year. All of those are generating projects. All of those are generating ideas and direction as we begin to formulate the budget as we move forward. So that's the process in a quick kind of nutshell of how it works its way through. I want to cover a little bit of the FY24 budget. As I mentioned, before kind of launching into the recommended FY25 budget, it's really a good time to pause and look at what the investments of the year that we're currently in. Andrea shared with you earlier kind of where we are in that process in terms of revenues received and expenditures secured. And this is intended to kind of remind folks a little bit about what was in the FY24 budget, and again, talking a bit about what is taking place associated with this. With the FY24 approved budget, there has been a continued focus on increasing employee compensation, and I've got a few of those notes on the screen. There was over $9 million that you all approved for additional compensation. Those included moving public safety onto their next steps in the step pay plan, or in some cases finalizing their movement onto the step pay plan. It also initiated increased starting pay for non-sworn hires. If you remember, we got almost everyone to that new target minimum. We'll talk about that here in just a few moments as well. And of course, we were able to maintain the $15 an hour minimum for employees, which with your approval, we established a couple of years ago, well ahead, I might say, of the state established. It still hasn't established at that level, and so that was able to be maintained as we move forward. And even though health insurance premiums continue to increase, we've been able for several years to actually assume the cost of those increases so that our employees are able to realize the full impact, the full benefit of salary increases that you have realized. We always kind of caution that one with, don't know how long that's going to be able to last. A lot of it depends really on the scale of those increases as we moved forward. With those compensation enhancements, we continue to move closer to market rates. And we shared with you a couple of briefings ago that we're starting to see that movement in our workforce toward kind of the midpoint or toward more of the market value. We'll continue to do that with the FY25 recommended budget, and we have started to see a slowing in turnover in those positions, which again is, of course, the goal, one of the goals associated with that also. We also secured with the FY24 budget, we began really the efforts of securing funding for the Wasina Bridge, Main Street Bridge replacement. And in addition to that bridge, we also took on additional paving projects, sidewalk projects. I think we ended up something like 64 lane miles were approved for paving in this current budget. I believe over 13 miles of sidewalks under some form of repair or replacement or installation. Recreation facilities, of course, those include not only the marquee items that we've talked about previously with the Washington Park Pool and the Eureka Recreation Center, but they also included refurbishing most of our playgrounds in our parks, as well as many of our athletic courts also with those. Of course, you know, in this current budget, it also included funding to continue to progress on a number of high-profile redevelopment projects, most notably Riverdale in Southeast, but also including work going on the Jefferson Avenue with our innovation corridor and a number of stormwater projects. So those are all infrastructure projects that came through and are still going on with the FY24 budget. And of course, the local and regional economy continues to expand and show significant resiliency as things continue to sort of evolve in the community. With the FY24 budget, we also were able to continue, with the FY24 budget, we also were able to be able to continue to expand your strong support for schools. For the first time, you may remember, we actually crossed the $100 million threshold with this current budget that we're in right now. So for the first time, you contribute over $100 million in support to the schools. That number will yet again get surpassed in what we share with you here in just a few moments with the recommended budget, with what you'll see. Also, the city continues.
Repeat that one more time, Bob.
So with the approved budget, so you approved the budget with $102 million, I believe is the number actually that ended up in the approved budget for the schools. That was the first time that the city had crossed the line of $100 million going to the schools. With the year-end surplus settle up, that actually added almost another $4 million to that funding with it. And again, here in a few moments, we'll talk about what's in this proposed budget, which is a higher level of funding than what that was.
I just wanted to make sure the media heard that.
The city also continues with its many partners to continue to receive recognition and accolades from a variety of organizations and outlets, and I just have a few of those here, some of which we've shared with you before. You know, these include recognition as the top adventure city in Blue Ridge. It included, again, the feature I shared with you all in the governing magazine regarding the biotech and medical and health and wellness kind of renovations taking place within the renovation renaissance within the community. We also, with the FY24 approved budget, were able to advance on a number of key strategic initiatives. And I'm just going to read off a couple of these that are on the screen currently. We continued the implementation of the Star City Strong Resiliency Fund investments. These are our ARPA fund investments. And of course, those investments are occurring all over the city. We have a significant number of projects. Most of you have gone to some of the ribbon cuttings in Southeast, for example, with the housing that's actually being constructed in those areas. Of course, the Goodwill grocery store is under construction with it. Those are just a few examples, and we continue to advance in both started in FY24 and will continue in FY25. Of course, you all are familiar with the zoning reform adoptions, the adoption of the Evans Spring Master Plan, a number of affordable housing initiatives. These include the establishment of a workforce housing trust fund. That was with your assistance. We've placed $2 million into that trust fund. And also, as Katie just mentioned a few moments ago, the CDBG, CV, Home ARP, and other funds that are established for affordable housing, many of which are targeted toward individuals who either are or have recently been homeless and getting them into permanent supportive housing. Partnerships with Habitat and others, those combined with the zoning reforms really are tied directly to the effort at addressing affordable housing in our community that you have stated for a number of years as a priority. We secured over $40 million in additional state, federal, and philanthropic grants. Those go for a variety of different purposes, ranging from one that you'll receive later that deals with daycare and an analysis going on in daycare, all the way up to grants that we received from the state for the Main Street Bridge. So over $40 million. This year, there's over $40 million in the preceding year as well. Continued street paving, sidewalk replacement, and bike lane installations, continued drainage improvements and stream restorations, and then again, some of those accolades that are listed for the work that has been done by the staff through this FY24. So I present that really just to give a very, very quick kind of snapshot of where those investments are and what impact they are already having in this year as we kind of wind down the FY24 budget and get ready to go into the FY25 budget. So the FY25, the recommended FY25 budget is balanced. It is $379,106,000 in revenue, $379,106,000 in expenditures. These are all, of course, projections and are subject to change. As I like to remind staff whenever we do budgets that a budget is a plan. It is not a guarantee. It is really what we believe the revenues will be, and then based on what we believe those revenues to be, it is what we anticipate expenditures to be. One of the reasons we do the monthly evaluation with you all, and we're doing it even more frequently internally, is we're constantly monitoring those revenues. And if revenues are not coming in the way in which they were projected, we have to make adjustments to our expenditures, because a budget in local government has to not only be balanced when you approve it, it has to be balanced when you end it as well. So we have to continue to monitor those as they work their way through. The recommended budget is responsive to council's priorities. Again, you'll see that as we go through this presentation. Community needs and the organization's requirements. It achieves this by providing record funding for schools, maintaining a continued commitment to public safety, including compensation increases and higher starting pay for police officers, firefighters, and paramedics, a continued commitment to recruiting, retaining, and recognizing employees, including compensation increases, defraying rising health care costs, and shoring up the pension. All in all, nearly $11 million of the recommended budget is committed to increase in employee compensation. And again, we'll cover more of this as I work our way through the presentation. There are increased investments in infrastructure and quality of life, bridges, sidewalks, street parks, drainage, and more. With the beginning also for the first time ever to build funds that will advance on the council's climate action objectives with municipal buildings and on enhancing maintenance of regional outdoor recreation facilities such as the Roanoke River Greenway. Continued support of a strong and growing economy with continued investments in southeast Roanoke at Riverdale, in the Innovation Corridor, and in small businesses through increased funding for the Small Business Development Center and local incubators and co-working spaces, along with additional funding for our Economic Development Department. And finally, increased investments with our community partners, including additional funding for Blue Ridge Behavioral Health, RVTV3, Mill Mountain Zoo, and others. All total nearly $900,000 more for our external partners than last year. Just a real quick refresher of what you all helped us identify as the priorities going into this fiscal year budget. You'll remember that we discussed the contractual inflationary increases, mentioned the compensation tied to recruitment and retention, also the inflationary pressures on our capital. All of the things that we purchase and build are costing us more to do, and the cost of borrowing to be able to do those things is also costing us more as we attempt to implement those. And then, of course, the departmental requests as well as the external agency requests. Those were the priorities that we had discussed at the very beginning of this process, and I'm going to walk you through some of the investments, some of which we've kind of talked a little bit about. So I'm not going to go into great detail, but I want to make certain that you're aware of what these investments are. So let's start, and these are presented in your priority order. So let's start with the schools. So the recommended budget you have in front of you includes a historic investment in schools, $106.9 million. That's $5.4 million more than what was approved in the approved budget for FY24. It also includes continued investment in public safety. Again, I won't go through the items associated with compensation. I'll cover those a little bit later. But also it includes completing the land acquisition and design for Fire Station Number 2 replacement. Of course, you know that we've had to shift that out just slightly in order to accommodate the Main Street Bridge, but we are still proceeding with design on that bridge. It includes a number of fleet replacements, which include ambulances, fire apparatus, police vehicles, and others, And then there's some minor upgrades to existing fire stations.
Bob, could you explain the word historic? What does that imply?
Yeah, so in the case of the school funding, obviously, you all fund that based off of a formula, and as our revenues go up, so as we receive more money, then so do the schools, obviously, in doing so. And so again, last year we broke through kind of that $100 million mark. This year we're at that $106.9 million contributions.
All right, thank you.
Again, continued investment in staff recruitment and retention. We talked about this, I think, at the last briefing, which in addition to an increase in public safety compensation, all of our employees will be at or above their target minimum. And for all non-sworn positions, there's a 3% salary increase. Continued investment in infrastructure and livability. This relates directly to your CIP, which is about $85 million in capital investments. And you can see some of the projects that are listed in that list for infrastructure items. But also for livability is, again, I want to mention the fund for implementation of the Climate Action Plan. You'll recall that we're now taking a portion of our CIP money, setting it aside to ensure that as we build buildings that are municipal buildings or facilities, that we're able to incorporate elements and aspects of the Climate Action Plan rather than those getting kind of value engineered out. So there'll be a bucket of money that will be able to kind of generate and increase that fund over the years. Also, we talked about establishing a regional outdoor recreation maintenance fund, which is essentially taking 50% of any increase in our share of the funding we receive from the occupancy, transit occupancy funds, and actually setting that aside, again, to build a fund that we then use to be able to maintain regional outdoor recreation facilities, such as the Roanoke River Greenway. And again, one of the advantages of that is it relieves pressure on our regular maintenance needs associated with parks, because right now we use those dollars to actually take care of those facilities. So those are two livability additions. There is an increase in the budget proposal for youth recreation funding. There is also, we have begun to increase the staffing needs, which will be necessary to be able to staff the Washington Park Pool and the Eureka Recreation Center when they open. So you'll see kind of a part of those hirings take place in the recommended budget. Then when FY26 rolls around, we'll have to actually finish those and add to those staffs.
Yeah.
Are you planning to increase the number of workers at the Parks and Rec?
There will be. So that, and it will be tied with, so Eureka is a really good example of that with Eureka Recreation Center, there's already a staff there, but as it reopens larger and there'll be more programming, there is a need for more staff associated with that center. So yes, we will be adding to those. Now, we won't be adding those for Eureka, we won't be adding those until next year's budget, FY26, because of when it will open. So we want to hire folks before it opens, but not 2 years before it opens. It's not even under construction. But the Washington Park Pool will be the same way. We will actually have to add folks on. If you remember, for a while, we did not actually operate the Washington Park Pool. It was actually operated by the local YMCA. And then the year after COVID, when the pool was open for that year, we had to take over those operations. Those folks obviously don't work for us because they're temporary employees. So we have to start adding staff to be able to do that work. So yes, we will be adding staff to be able to start staffing those positions.
But how about the positions that are vacant right now in Parks and Rec? Will that?
I mean, in terms of those positions, the positions are funded.
Okay.
And so, yes, so I mean, the goal, of course, is with their salary increases that are going into those positions, that vacant positions will get filled as we're starting to see those turnovers take place. But the focus of new staff in Parks and Recreation are going to be on those new facilities that we're opening. Does that answer that?
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
And this is falls back up on Councilmember Sanchez Jones, where you have the initiate the increased funding for the staff for new expanded parks and recreation facilities. And I was trying to make sure I was following. So the Eureka Recreation Center, it already has a staff. So until the new facility has been renovated, you won't be adding new staff until then.
Correct. So what we'll do is prior to, let's say, for example, 6 months prior to it opening, we'll start hiring staff. And you'll start with, just like we are with the pools, you'll start with kind of the supervisors to get them ready for the new opening associated with it. And then as we get closer to opening, we'll continue to add staff as we go forward. But you want to have the staff really on payroll prior to its opening rather than opening
Right, so the
it.
pool is anticipated to open what, next
It'll
summer?
open, yes, it'll
25?
open May, June timeframe.
Right.
So remember, our fiscal year starts in July.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll start hiring kind of an April timeframe to get folks ready for that June opening. And then
Right,
the rest
from
of their
this-
salary.
From this budget? that
Yes,
we're
yes, and the rest of their salary get
proposing.
covered in the next budget.
Yes, I
Yeah,
get it,
yeah.
okay.
And mainly, we're mentioning that because even though we're not funding those,
Mhm.
say the Eureka positions in here, we want to make sure that both you are aware and the public is aware that there is that cost anticipated for FY '26 that we're
Right.
already aware of.
Right. And you mentioned also increased funding for youth recreation. Where is that coming in at? Is that well, I'm not going to answer it. Let me let you answer.
Sure, those will be, it actually is just dollars that will be added to their budget for youth recreation, and so it will actually be programmed by the Parks Department. So it's not dedicated to a particular program, it's to take care of their after-school programs, it's to take care of their other youth sports, youth recreation.
So we're just giving them some, maybe I can
think
find it in the budget.
Yeah, I think
I'm
it was
just trying to see how
250, I
much.
think it was $250,000 is what the allocation is.
Oh, okay,
and- yeah.
okay. And that comes from how much was it before you added the increase? Do you know?
I don't know, I can get that for you, I don't recall.
I'm just curious to see what the increase
Yeah,
amount
and
is.
we are, now in fairness, we are doing that in this budget out of a one-time source. So
Mhm.
as we move into FY '26, we'll need to be looking at how we stabilize that as we
Right,
move
right.
forward.
And is this part of coming out of the part where we were outsourcing?
It
and
is,
we're
it's tied to
bringing it
that
back
same.
in-house?
Yes. So it's enabling us to be able to do more of that work in-house. Now, of course, that's always dependent on us being able to hire temporary workers, part-time
Right,
workers,
right.
those kinds of things. But yes, that is the intent.
And this will cover summer programs as well as summer activities?
Yes, and not just summer, but yes, it definitely will cover
Or
those.
after school
Yes,
programs?
yes.
And summer activities, okay. Thank you.
Sure. Make sure I'm on the right slide here. So also it includes increased support for economic development. Again, I've mentioned some of these, but it includes increased funding for the Roanoke Regional Partnership, the Advancement Foundation, the industrial facilities, which is, of course, that's the joint tech park that actually is under construction jointly with Roanoke County and with the City of Salem. And also includes continued support for the co-working incubators that we have, as well as increased funding for economic development. The increased funding for economic development is predominantly focused on two things, which is, one, giving them additional funds to be able to attend trade shows where they actually are marketing the city. The other is actually, I've asked them to go through an accreditation process. So much like our Parks Department is accredited, much like our police and fire are accredited, there is a similar program for economic development, and so they're beginning that work on that, and there is a cost associated with going through that process. So that's where most of that funding is going. Then as mentioned,
Before you go,
Sure.
excuse me, before you go to the community partners, where you got the increased funding for the regional partnership, Advanced Foundation.
The Advancement Foundation. So this is the group that does the Gauntlet competition. So if you're familiar with, if you go to our libraries right now, there's kind of a banner up that says the Gauntlet. So think of what RAMP does. So RAMP is our partner for biotech and health and wellness. Think of that for regular small businesses. That's what the Advancement Foundation does. And so, I can get you more information on what they do, but it is really, they do a number of things. They do mentoring for small businesses. They also do, the Gauntlet is actually a competition for small businesses to be able to qualify for some additional funds that they will provide. These funds aren't going to that, but they raise those funds. And then they also offer an ongoing kind of mentoring and other kinds of programs with that, so.
Similar to what, I think you said RAMP, what they do?
Yes, except a different market.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
And the other one was where you were giving support for co-working business incubators. The Williamson, I think I remember that from last year.
Yeah, this is actually the same funding as last year. So yes, so it covers the CoLab, the Williamson, and the Collective. So those are the three incubators that have been covered under that. It's the same funding level and the same items as last year in the
I
budget.
understand the CoLab and I understand the Williamson. So what does the Collective do?
So the Collective is actually in Northwest, so it is an incubator and co-working space also in that location. If you saw in our recent update, they're actually hosting, for example, with our Economic Development Department, they're hosting a collection of Northwest businesses to determine if those businesses want to come together and actually form a business association in the area. That's one example. It also has done recently, they did a STEAM camp for youth in Northwest, where they actually expose them to careers in those areas. So it's very similar to CoLab in that it's a co-working space, so people can actually go there and actually work
And I'm just
in
trying
there.
to, is that the Hope Center?
No, it's across the street from the Hope
Across the
Center.
street from the Hope
So
Center?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is where Xavier Duckett runs that
Yes,
one?
yes.
Because I had heard of other businesses, owners who had mentioned wanting to start, this was some time back, were interested in a business association,
Yes.
wanting to start one, but had not heard, and I guess now with this starting up
Yeah, and
under
I
Xavier.
want to say maybe next week, I believe, is when that meeting takes place. Is Mark? 23rd. Thank you.
Okay.
The collective is part of the Humble Hustle.
Yes. But I had heard from the others several months ago.
And hopefully, I mean, there is an interest in establishing those businesses, so maybe more than one. I mean, Northwest is a very large area.
Yes, it is,
And so it may make sense to have something for businesses on Orange versus something for the other businesses.
Yeah,
But
okay.
that's some of the work that they do.
Yes, I will let them know that. Okay.
And then continued support for community partners, and again, we'll go into a little more detail on some of these, but it includes increased mental health funding, increased funding for Mill Mountain Zoo, increased funding for a number of our partners, some of which I've already mentioned, some that are also on this list, some that are by formula. So VBR, for example, comes in based off of what the tax revenues are that are generated for the occupancy tax, and they get a portion of that automatically, as do we. And then, of course, again, as I mentioned, funding support for the Small Business Development Center. So let me transition slightly here so that I can highlight some of the, and again, all of this is going to be things that you've seen previously, but to be able to highlight the revenues and expenditures. On the left are the projected revenues by source. So if you run across it as general property taxes, local tax, other local taxes, revenue, use of money, other revenues, permit fees, and so on. Similar to what actually Andrea just presented to you, that's those same categories that we use. If you look to the right are the expenditures by priority, and so again, if you look and see, you can see what is being spent on education, what is being spent on human services, community safety, and so on. All of this is consistent with what was shown essentially at the last briefing with it, but it shows that, and then of course on the next two slides, it breaks that down a little bit further. So those are kind of the aggregate items, and of course ultimately the adopted budget will carry this several pages deeper, but if you look at this slide, for example, with the revenue, it's actually showing you not only what we are projecting any kind of increase to be for the particular fund category, but it is also showing you what was adopted in the budget for '24 for last year, as well as it's also showing our enterprise funds. And you remember the enterprise funds are those funds where through service fees or charges, they're actually attempting to cover all or some part of their costs associated with that. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about those as we move through. And also the risk management fund, which is our only remaining internal service fund that we have. So, excuse me, so that information is designed to show you the revenues, again, from the general fund revenues, obviously account for the $379,106,000. That represents, as we have shared with you before, a $23.7 million increase or 6.7% increase. The enterprise funds are expected to increase by 4.8%. And then at the very bottom, you see what the school fund is, and we always have to kind of, well, it seems like lately we always have to put this asterisk next to the school fund, which is, that is currently what they expect the fund to actually be in order to operate the schools, but of course that is dependent upon the state allocation, and of course the state budget's not approved yet. So they'll know what we're providing them, they don't yet know what the state's providing. They're obviously modeling what they can do off of the different versions of what the state has put forward.
I do have a question. Under your enterprise funds, just so the public will be aware, because I was asked the question. Well, we knew years ago that there was going to be increases in increments for the stormwater utility fund.
Yes.
Could you say what that increase is going to be now that the public is going to receive starting July?
Yes, so it is. So you have structured a multi-year phased-in increase, and I believe it goes up by a nickel per square foot of the area that is impervious, and I think it's going from 120 to 125, I believe is what the number is per square foot associated with that. And what that translates into a particular budget, or a particular bill, I can get that information for you as we go.
Okay,
Go
please,
forward.
because
Yeah.
I know they've been asking that question.
Yeah, and I believe that is actually the only fee increase that actually is anticipated with this current budget. We have not budgeted nor asked for any other fee increases. On the expenditure side, again, not going to go into great detail because we just covered most of this also, but this allows you to see in a little more detail what we had budgeted for education, for example, in FY24, what we're proposing to budget for it in FY25, and community safety, human services, infrastructure, good government, livability, economy, and so on. And again, it just is really to show you the $379,106,000 in expenditures, comparable to the same number on revenues. Similarly, it shows it for the enterprise funds as well as for the internal service funds. So this is really just, these two slides are the balancing slides to show you where the revenues are coming from and how those are being allocated across categories. And it is also this information that we are required to actually publish so that folks know categorically what we're proposing to spend on the budget. You all have seen this slide before in presentations, but I always think it's important. And in some ways, it's actually an encouraging slide now. I don't know, I would have said that a few years ago. And what this is doing is it is showing that as revenues have increased over the years, due to inflation, our purchasing power has largely stayed stagnant. Fortunately, over the last couple of years, that has not been the case. We're actually starting to see revenues being generated at a point at which we're seeing actual growth in purchasing power with that. And that's where you see in FY23 and FY24, you see that year-over-year growth exceeding 6%, whereas, up until roughly 22, we had essentially the same purchasing power as we had in 2015. And of course, as is the case with all of us and with our residents and our businesses, nothing is costing the same. You heard earlier, and John's still here, I don't want to pick on John, but the cost of disposing of our trash is going up, and that has to be incorporated into this budget. The cost of what AEP charges us for electric is going up and has to be incorporated into this budget. So having a flat purchasing power does not benefit us well. In these last couple of years, we've started to see that actually increasing. This slide is actually covering, again, just a different way of looking at the summary of investments. So these are where we've shown you kind of in the aggregate. These are now actually going by by category, how we are proposing in this in the recommended budget to spend those new investments of $23.7 million. Almost half of it is going into compensation. About $11 million is going into compensation, and the next biggest category, of course, representing 23% of that new investment, is going to the city public schools. So between those two, 70+% are going into the employees that actually deliver the services, as well as funding for the schools. Just going to quickly go through by priority. So now this is going by your 7 priorities. The recommended budget, again, for education is at $112 million. 106.9 of that is going to schools. The remainder is going for other things, particularly associated with our libraries. And of course, we will continue to support the funding for the capital projects. As you know, the schools fund, they service their own debt for the projects, but they use, much like we just did with Hotel Roanoke, they use our process in order to benefit from the credit rating that you all, that we benefit from. And so that will continue. On the community safety piece, again, I mentioned that we're almost at community safety, almost at $100 million being spent on community safety. That is not all police, fire, and sheriff. There are other things that go into community safety that add up to that amount. And as I mentioned, all of the public safety folks will advance to their next step in the pay plan. As well, we will be increasing starting pay for police officers to $49,555. The reason for the odd number is it's one of the spots on the step pay plan, so we select that spot for that. The pay for firefighters, recruits will go to $47,150. We are adding at the sheriff's request a new rank within the sheriff's department, and there is a cost associated with that. That is very similar to what we have in our police department for senior police officers. If you remember, After you've been a police officer for a certain amount of time, then you qualify to move up into the senior police officer, which comes with both a pay increase and additional responsibilities. The sheriff is working with setting up a similar scenario inside the sheriff's office for that. We're also increasing starting paramedic pay. That will be at $54,870. And so those starting pays, the sheriff's starting pay has increased by action of the General Assembly. And so we, of course, are absorbing that into the budget also. You all know, because you reacted to the amount, that, of course, there is funding being increased for the Regional Center for Animal Care and Protection. That is also under this community safety umbrella. And again, there are continued investments in equipment and facilities. On the human services side, so these are our Department of Social Services and others. This is a recommended budget component of about $50 million. That does include an increase in funding for Blue Ridge Behavioral Health. Just to be clear again on this one, we pay for our portion, which is about 10%. If you remember, years ago, we were not meeting that 10% threshold. With your help, we got to that 10% threshold, and that is based. It changes each year because it's based on usage. So as more of our residents use the services present at Blue Ridge Behavioral, our bills go up with it, and that's what's happened this year. So the increase is due to more people using the service, and therefore we're maintaining that 10% number and still meeting our share, and that increases that cost.
What services do Blue Ridge Behavior provide?
They do a whole well, for us, one of the things one of the things they actually provide most recently for us is they actually, you may have been at, I know you were at some of our town hall meetings with the police department. They now actually have caseworkers that accompany the police officers to.
Okay, so they're taking on that now.
Right. Say, for example, if somebody is barricaded themselves in a home, they'll actually go, or they're suicidal, they'll actually go and they assist the police officers. That's one service, but the majority of the services are actually individuals that are seeking mental health care through that. Most of those folks are seeking it through Blue Ridge Behavioral because they cannot either acquire or afford private health care or private treatment.
I guess I was just thinking about other mental health agencies throughout the valley. That's why I was.
And there are others. Bradley Free Clinic is a really good example of that, where we helped with your help to get their wing expanded for mental health services, and they certainly do also with that. Even with all of those in place, those are significantly below the need, meeting the need with it. But yes.
I guess I was just asking because you just only mentioned the Blue Ridge one. That's why.
Yeah, and the reason the Blue Ridge one is mentioned is because by agreement, the state requires us to fund this entity because it is the state's delivery of mental health services in our community, whereas Bradley Free Clinic operating, it gets federal dollars, but it really is optional for the city to participate in that, unlike the Blue Ridge Behavioral. And we do participate with Bradley Free Clinic in a bunch of different ways.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then other human services, we've talked before about alternative private day school costs increasing. Obviously, the tension with Youth Haven and others continue to increase, less so than they did before. And of course, we've talked previously about encampment cleanups and then other social services. The bulk of this budget is actually consumed by DSS. I mean, the majority of it is associated with those services. Infrastructure, there is a number, and we'll talk about the capital program again here in just a moment, but as mentioned by Councilmember Moon Reynolds, it will continue the implementation of the planned multi-year stormwater fee increase. The proposed budget also increases funding for street paving, sidewalks, stormwater management, pedestrian and bicycle safety. We are self-insured, and so even though people, for example, health insurance, they know we have Aetna, people assume that Aetna provides us insurance, we insure ourselves. We collect those dollars from our employees, we match them with dollars, and then that's put into a fund. That fund is what pays for our health care. We do the same thing for our vehicles and buildings. However, we are seeing instances where we believe if we were privately insured on our vehicles, or at least a part of those, we would actually, in instances, for example, when the ambulance was hit head-on by someone and effectively totaled, we actually think if we had private insurance, we would be able to recover more of those funds than what we're able to do. So it's kind of a pilot to actually push this out there and be able to cover some of that insurance in not just a self-insured way, but actually with an insurance company. Similar to what you all instructed us to do a couple of years ago with kind of that gap insurance, where we've got those instances where even though we've got sovereign immunity, there are just some circumstances that cause us to want to turn that over to another insurer who would actually fill that gap. This is a little bit somewhat like that. We've talked before about the need for increased funding for snow truck equipment rental. We're starting to phase out of the snow equipment ownership and into more rentals associated with it. It just becomes very costly to take these trucks and basically just dedicate them to this service and then repair them each year as we go through. It's much more cost effective to be able to get rid of that fleet and actually replace it with leases.
Can you, Mark? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, are you, with the current fleet that we have, are we selling that off, or how is that?
Yes, when we can. So yes, they're in some pretty bad shape. But yes, all of our vehicles, we salvage all of our vehicles if they have a salvage value attached with them. These are, probably what we would not be salvaging is the actual salt spreaders, for example, are so bad that you're really not going to be able to. But the vehicles we do, as we're able to. And that's again true with everything except possibly with our sort of retiring police vehicles, because we've actually rolled those into a take-home car program that we try to actually stretch those out. Some fire apparatus we'll keep in reserve, and then others we will actually salvage out. Again, we keep our vehicles much longer than we would ideally prefer to, so there's not a whole lot of value left with them when they leave our fleet.
Gotcha.
So that was my question, Mr. Mollison, was, can we sell them? And it sounds like they're in pretty bad shape, but can we sell whatever we have and get some of the
Yes, we do.
collectors?
And that's actually part of our modeling.
that?
So when we model what we think we need for fleet, it includes some value with salvage attached to it, so. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so the other part of that was, can we then purchase a leaf collector with the proceeds from the...
Yes, we have that. We have that number for you that we'll share with you when we do our 2x2s.
Oh, it doesn't sound good.
It is an extensive cost, I'll just say that, so, yes.
Okay.
It is getting into hundreds.
Okay, we'll
yeah,
save it
yeah.
for another time.
But yes, we did explore that option because that was an option that you had talked about in one of those, and we'll share that with you at the individual meetings.
Okay.
And then again, this section includes enhanced funding for compensation and operations within the categories that are shown. I did want to show this, and it's a little bit busy, but I do think it's important for folks, and you all have seen this before. So the paving plan. So each year, we have in our base budget around $1 million for paving. Then you add in the capital program a few more $1 million, and then fortunately, you just saw like our year-end funding that we presented to you at the last briefing. We added yet another $1 million. So in this year alone, that's letting us pave over 64 lane miles of streets. The graphic that's on the screen right now is on our website, and it actually shows the paving plan. Remember, our paving plan is based off of condition. So all of our streets have been evaluated for paving condition, and we start with those that are the worst paving condition, and our goal is to get them up to a certain standard. We will also, though, work in a neighborhood. So we're not just doing one street in a neighborhood and come back a year later and do another street. We'll work in those streets. We're also coordinating with all of our utility providers. So if we have a street that's going to be paved and a water line needs to be replaced, they'll replace it before we pave it. Or conversely, if they're going to repair a water line or replace a water line, it may accelerate paving in that area. A really good example of that is if you look on this image, and this relates directly to 2025, the purple grid that's kind of up there in Northwest, if you remember, it shared with you that the Water Authority applied for and secured under the Infrastructure Act significant funding for the replacement of all of the water lines in that area, which are all substandard 2-inch water lines. They don't provide adequate fire flow, and they're prone to failure. So the Water Authority is actually going in there with a contractor and replacing all of those. And as a result, we're coming in and then paving all of the streets in that area. So it will be a very disruptive period of time, but it will result in better fire flow protection, better water flow for the residents, and also new streets in those areas. That's not the only place that's paving. You see quite a bit of paving going up kind of in the Williamson Road area in 2025 and then out further to the west. But this again gives you a sense of, and you all know these projects are on our list, and we work down our list till the contractor runs out of money, and then we roll it into the subsequent year. So these are still subject to some change, but this gives you a really good idea of where street paving has occurred since 2022 and where it's anticipated to occur all the way out to 2026.
I just wanted to ask one question before I start getting calls. I noticed that Avonham isn't marked on
Yes,
here.
so this has not been changed to reflect the Avonham advancement piece of it. So that would actually be advanced into, I think we had indicated FY 25.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was actually calendar year 25, which could fall either in the 25 or 26 budget, but yes, it will be adjusted on there.
Thank you.
Sure. On the good government category, this includes a whole host of things that are in our budget, and it includes the increased funding for external agencies, increased funding for crime prevention and intervention. That is primarily our transition from some grant-funded positions into now funded positions. So, for example, Jabari, who is our outreach coordinator, actually getting that position funded, much as we have in the past with our reset coordinator and with Chris's position. We'll keep doing that. This also includes, though it's grant-funded, it includes the group violence intervention grant that we received from the Attorney General, it's not a grant, it's a program we're interacting with the Attorney General's office on, and that included a DCJS grant for an administrator, and that's grant-funded, but in 2 years, we'll need to look at actually bringing that online with that. And then again, compensation and operation increases for community engagement, which is tied directly to that crime prevention piece. City Clerk's office, which is predominantly tied to additional travel, or additional professional development for you, as well as additional food dollars that have been requested by the clerk. And then human resources and finance. On the livability side, we talked briefly about this relative to the solid waste temporary wages. This does not change their pay, because again, these are contract employees. What this is doing is we're putting more money into the budget for solid waste, so that rather than them unfunding other categories in order to fund this, we're actually putting more money in this category so that they can retain more of those dollars in the other categories. This will probably take at least 2 years to work our way all the way through that. My goal is to have those temporary wages fully accounted for in the budget, rather than them having to go in those other categories and in effect rob from them. I mentioned that there is an increase in the tipping fees that John had just mentioned earlier, so that's incorporated in this budget. And then, of course, additional compensation and operations around parks and recreation and solid waste. And then on the economy portion of it, again, there's additional funding for the special service districts. This is through DRI as well as through the Williamson Road area. These are by formula, so it's a special assessment that they attach to properties within those. Obviously, the values of the properties are going up, therefore the money that we pass through to them increases also. Mentioned there's an increase in funding for the Small Business Development Center. So in this current year, we took on the Small Business Development Center as one of our operations. So they're already being provided in-kind space, and some additional funding was in this year's budget, and about $9,000 is being added again in this current budget. If you remember when Amanda was here and she presented some of the ideas that they have for that, she'll be actually making that same request of all of our other government partners associated with the Small Business Development Center. We are taking steps to actually move so that our arts and culture funding position that Doug Jackson is currently in, which is a part-time position, can become a full-time position. So we're making some moves. That actually, we've got a way in which to do that. It is not going to actually cost us anything. What we're doing is swapping out some existing but vacant positions in planning and building development services and actually replacing those with that. And we'll have more information on that for you all, but that's one of those. And then again, I already mentioned the increase tied to economic development. For the non-departmental, this is the really exciting category, because this is all these things that are just all lumped together, but they're really important for us. These are where we cover things like the one-time departmental request, which I'll come back to in just a moment, as well as risk management, which includes our workers' compensation. We're increasing that. Each year we try to put more money into that to make sure that we're covering our liabilities associated with that. In the past, we've actually had to underfund that. This year, we're actually able to fully fund what we want to be able to do with that, which I believe is about $500,000. That sounds right.
Could you go back just a minute?
Sure.
In the economy part?
Yes.
Where you got the increased funding for compensation and operations of the economic development.
Yeah, you see that actually appear in each of the categories. That actually represents the everybody moving to the new minimum and the 3% increase.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it had to do with I guess their plan where they were trying to work the development plan.
Yeah, the strategic plan
Yes,
portion of it and stuff. No.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, there are projects in that are tied to that, but they tend to become more capital projects than what this is. Yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, there are expense increases in municipal facilities. Those tend to be increases in our utility costs. Again, we have to buy gas and electric just like everyone else, and those costs are going up. Debt service, you'll remember when David Rose and others gave the presentation, that as we continue to add projects into our capital list, we have to every year add more money to service that debt. You'll also remember that in the past, we've had, we don't use all of that in one year. We refer to it as excess debt service. That's what we have funded our one-time items for in the past. If you remember, we're actually not doing that beginning with this budget. That's going into a fund balance so that we can start actually saving money with that debt service, so that as it increases over the years, we can kind of smooth that out a bit more. So we're actually absorbing the one-time items in with the recurring in terms of the general fund piece. We no longer have a dedicated source for one-time items. And then position reclassification. So reclassifications are positions that have either changed because of job assignments, or there's been a reorganization that has been approved for one of the departments, or there has been a significant increase in workload. Some reclassifications literally just result in a change in title. They stay in the same pay grade, it doesn't affect any. Others actually result in a movement into another pay grade associated with that. So there is about $300,000 in the budget associated with those reclassifications. Those are found in the Commissioner of Revenue's office, Finance Department, Human Services, Libraries, Parks and Recreation, Planning, Police, and Transportation. And again, those are, I'll use an example of the libraries, for example. The library one is just a change in title. It's not a change in the pay grade piece of it. Some of these are, and we'll go into where it says see list. That list is something we'll go over with you all in your 2-by meetings that we have. Let me actually say in that same spot, that's also where we cover any new FTEs. There are only, I think there are 7 proposed new FTEs in the organization. 5 of those, I believe, are paid through the enterprise fund, so we're not an impact on the general fund, type of stormwater, for example. The other FTE increases are being offset by a reduction of existing vacant positions. So when you look at the list of funded positions, I think it goes up less than a full person. So we're still at right around that 1,805 employees, but it's allowing us to make some adjustments. We are also funding, if the grant application is successful, we're funding 6 positions within the fire department already accounted for in the FTE list, but we're actually adding those in. They were added in last year in the budget, but we didn't add those into the numbers. We're adding those into the numbers, asking for the grant. The grant will allow us to go for 3 years, but it kind of decreases each year over those 3 years. So at the end of the 3 years, we'll have to fully absorb the costs associated with those 6 firefighter positions. And again, we'll talk more about what those are as we move. I'm not going to go into any real great detail on the CIP because you all have seen this multiple times. Just to remind everyone that the CIP, the recommended budget includes almost $85 million in capital items. Those are shown on the next couple of pages. And you all know that we pay for our capital items in 3 different ways. In this case, of the $85 million, almost $50 million of that is paid for through debt issuance, an anticipated debt issuance. About $7 million of that is paid for with cash that we have, and then about $28 million of that is paid for through grants. And those grants could be from the state. Main Street Bridge is a good example of that. They could be from federal resources. They could also be from philanthropic resources with it. But all total, again, about $85 million going into the variety of capital projects that are identified on those 2 pages. You all also will remember, we talked about this with capital, but there are still, as thankful as we are for how strong the economy has been and how strong our revenues are with it, there are some things to continue to keep in mind as we go through this fiscal year and prepare for the subsequent fiscal year. We continue to be competing for talent. Though we've been able to move our public safety employees, for example, onto their step pay plan and are advancing them through their step pay plan, and this year we're able to address that starting pay, it is time for us next year, in the next budget year, to actually move those tables. So those tables have been kind of frozen. So even though they're advancing, the steps themselves are not advancing. And so we need probably to put 1 or 2% increases into each of those steps. That'll be something we'll try to tackle in FY26. We also, again, are fortunate that we now are able to move everyone to their target minimum, and then are giving those folks a 3% increase, but what it really means is we've got a lot of compression. So we've been able to move everybody's salaries up, but they're all kind of stuck together, and that's true whether they've been here 5 years or 15 years. So we also need to be addressing compression as we move forward. And then, as we mentioned before, the need to be able to direct, for director and leadership compensation. And part of what's driving that is our management positions, everything is commanding higher salaries. So if you think of, and I've used the police chief as an example, the police chief coming in and significantly higher dollars that we had to pay to secure that, that is true. Go 2 or 3 levels down into the organization as managers are coming in, those salaries are commanding higher. And we are now actually seeing that same compression hitting up against our directors as they come into our organization, or more importantly, as we're competing for talent within those. The HR department has done an assessment of the directors across our peer competitors, really just in the state, even though in many cases, I'll use the example with the Parks and Recreation Director that we're going through right now. The candidates that we're interviewing are not all from Virginia. They're competing across the nation for these kinds of positions. And so that will be another item that will need some kind of attention as we go forward.
I do have a question with regards to that when we talk about the leadership, because the leadership organizational chart changed when Darlene changed it and went to that, I guess, that model, and moved so many directors over across the whole spectrum of the organization, instead of staying with just 4 directors and then having your managers, which probably would not have caused that compression. Is there any thought to changing up the organizational chart in some form to keep that from reoccurring over and over?
Yeah, to some degree, that was some of the effort of identifying kind of those executive directors, which is similar to what wasn't in place, I guess, before Darlene shifted those, which is, if you start kind of pricing yourself out in directors, can you shift to something that is more of an executive director, which will have a higher salary because now they're taking over, could potentially take over the work of 2 or 3 former directors, and then your managers are able to actually kind of move up as they take on. So that was part of that effort, and yes, I think we should always be looking at the organizational structure to figure out what's the best delivery method with it. It's actually, it's those technical, so think of engineers, computer programmers, those are the salaries that are really kind of ratcheting up because of the competition. And that's if we can find people to actually fit in those. And it's not all compensation. I mean, one of the other challenges we're up against is there are very few professional jobs that you see listed now where they're not advertising a couple of things. They're not advertising that at least 2, maybe 3 days out of the week you can work remotely. That's difficult for us here for many of our jobs. They're also advertising increasingly 4-day work weeks, 3-day weekends instead of 4-day work weeks, along with the compensation that we're talking about. Those are things we're probably never going to be competitive in. So that's going to continue to be a challenge, not just for us. Everybody is competing for talent, private sector and public sector, and it's becoming both more expensive and more difficult.
And while I can respect that, I just look at the city is taxpayers versus private, and I know we compete against that, but I just look at when it comes to services for the public.
Yeah, that's why for the most part, we don't actually use private sector as a competitive set. Even though we're competing with them, we're actually evaluating our salaries against other public providers for that reason, because we will, I use computer folks again as an example. I mean, somebody that is working in the tech field, we're never going to compete with the private side. However, we are competing with them for that talent. Paramedics is a really good example. I mean, we're competing with Carillion for paramedics. We're competing, our paramedics, folks that leave here that are paramedics leave to be nurses. They don't leave to be another paramedic someplace. And that is, but again, I saw an advertisement over the weekend, not locally, and it was for a nurse, and I don't even think it was an RN with it, and they were offering a $30,000 signing bonus. We will never be able to compete with those because we're tax funded, and it just is going to be limited.
Yeah, they're into just about everything they have is a traveling occupation.
Yep. Definitely. We had mentioned previously, and the graphic is up here, that there are a number of unfunded capital needs, and again, you're well familiar with what those are. I had kind of hoped that maybe we were seeing a toning down of inflationary impacts, but that certainly does not maybe seem to be the case as we continue to see inflation not decreasing, and maybe at some point increasing. And then I don't want to reject the notion that there is an increasing tax burden. I mean, part of the challenge is, in order to meet all of these expenses, in order to pay folks more, that, as I've talked about, in order to provide more money for the schools, that all comes from tax revenue. And that tax revenue is predominantly carried by by property owners. I'm not going to say necessarily homeowners, because there are also folks that own rental property and commercial property, but we still receive the largest amount of our locally raised tax dollars are coming from that property tax piece. So certainly don't want to recognize that that is not an endless well, that you've got to always be cognizant of that piece. And ultimately, trying to balance the provision of services that make our community an attractive place to make investments in and to live in with whatever the tax burden is that's associated with it also. And so, again, that will be a remaining consideration, I think, as you continue to evaluate budgets going into the future. And again, not unique. There is literally not a city council or a board of supervisors in this state right now who are not going through their budgets and having some of the exact same considerations associated with what's going on. Last slide, just a reminder of kind of what the remaining steps are with this process. So there are a few steps left. These include first they include, again, the rest of this week meeting with you all individually and two at a time to go deeper into what's in the budget, start to answer questions you might have. On April 25th, there will be a public hearing on the recommended budget and the tax rates. That is a special meeting, and it is at 7 o'clock. Not a special meeting, it is a meeting off of your normal cycle, and is at 7 o'clock. On May 6th, at a briefing, that is your workshop. So ideally, you'll take what you've heard over the next few weeks from us as you review the documents, what you heard at the public hearing, and identify any revisions to the budget that has been presented to you, because I'll say at the end of this is actually at the end of this meeting, this is your budget. So I'll come back to that in just a second. And then May 13th is the adoption of the budget and all the associated ordinances, and those include the pay ordinances, fee schedule, and a whole host of other documents with that. And the reason I said that it is your budget, because at this point, the staff's work is complete, absent additional direction from you. So we have taken the direction that you have provided us in terms of priorities and also associated revenues that we believe will be generated to craft the recommended budget that we have put before you. And it is now yours to actually kind of dive through and see if we have indeed met that mark, and also to hear from the community on what the proposal is and are. And then if there are adjustments necessary, remember, at this point, now the challenge is if there are adjustments necessary, this is a balanced budget. So what goes in one bucket has to come out of another bucket. And so at this point, that's where we are with this, and certainly happy to answer any questions that you might have at this point, knowing that we'll have many more questions as we move our way through the rest of the process. But again, want to thank you for your help in getting us to this point, and also thank the staff for their work in getting us to this point with the recommended budget.
No questions. Thank you.
And thank you for your questions through the way. That actually was helpful too, because I can't imagine holding all of those questions to the end and remembering them. So, and we'll have a lot more. I know we're going to meet individually, but I know as you read through the documents, you'll have other questions. Certainly, we're ready to answer those for you. For the community, for the public, so the documents that you have, so we have two documents, which is the recommended budget and the budget at a glance. So both of those will be posted up on the website and distributed through the libraries. The budget at a glance is like a 5-page sort of summary of what's in the recommended budget. The recommended budget, of course, is 100 and something pages of information that are in there. Those are all available publicly, I think, as soon as this meeting is over. Those are out there, and all of our briefings and presentations, thank you, and I'll come back to that. Yeah, thank you. All of our briefings and presentations, including today's, of course, are up on RVTV as well as our website. And Councilmember or Vice Mayor Cobb was just holding up the other piece of information that I failed to mention, and it's for your reference. So though I highlighted a number of the increases in the different areas, the different priority areas, those are only the highlights of new expenditures. So what you have in front of you is a 4 or 5 page list of all of the expenditures. So this is something we're trying to do a little bit differently this year, because a lot of those things are embedded in different places. This will give you an idea that you're able to go through and say, look at every single item that has been identified as a supplemental, which for us is an increase in a budget items in there. Some of them have odd titles, so if you have any questions about those, we can kind of explain what that is. There are a few that are in parentheses. Obviously, that means in that case, it's actually a deduction. We're actually lowering funds. A good example of that is the Broadband Authority, where we're actually reducing funding by $100,000, and that's because we are, with this budget, we have ended the operating subsidy for the Broadband Authority, so that's an example of one of those negatives, but that's there for your use, and again, we'll be able to answer more questions about any of the items that appear on that list also, and that includes one-time items as well as recurring items. So some of those you'll expect to see added to the base budget next year, other ones will be just one-time as we work through.
Do you have a total of it,
Yes. So there's a total of supplementals, do you remember?
what is the total? I'll just write it down. What is it, so I don't have to add it?
The supplemental, approved supplementals, one-time and recurring, do you remember? 1.6 million for one-time. 4.8 million, so
So the
4.8
total is 4.8?
for recurring and 1.6 for one-time, so combine them both
So
together.
that's what I'm saying. What is the total? I'm getting to,
6.4.
that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Yeah, 6.4, right?
I didn't want to sit here and do the math.
Yeah, it's dangerous to stand up and do math while it's on,
Right.
yes, those two.
That's why I was looking
Yep.
for the total on the page. Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good since he's been up all weekend.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, he's been living with those numbers for some time. Well, again, thank you all, and I look forward to kind of the deeper conversations we have over the next few days with it. And again, any questions that you have as you review the information, just let us know.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess and we'll come back. 5 minutes. All right, thank you, Bob. We're going to receive that information you shared and file it and probably get back with you again. I meant to chat with you about something. I'll get it when we finish here. Madam Clerk,
I thought you were
we're
going to ask me to
on,
repeat it. No, thank you.
Madam Clerk, we're on acquisition of real property.
Yes.
All right.
7A.
All right. Item number A is proposition of real property rights for the, and Mr. Pruitt is not here. I thought he was standing right over there. All right, item A is acquisition of real property rights for the Melrose Avenue Stormwater Drainage Improvement Project. There's an ordinance.
Move the ordinance. Second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
All right. An ordinance providing for the acquisition of real property rights needed by the city in connection with the Melrose Avenue Stormwater Drainage Improvements Project, authorizing city staff to acquire such property rights by negotiation for the city, authorizing the city manager to execute appropriate acquisition documents, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Bob, is there anything that,
No, nothing on this one.
okay. All right, no discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
All right. Mr. Pretty is out. Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the ordinance passes. Item B is an approval of the Equal Employment Opportunity Plan. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you read the title paragraph?
A resolution approving and adopting the Equal Employment Opportunity Plan for the City of Roanoke.
All right, any discussion by members of council?
I do have some questions.
Go ahead.
And I'll ask Angela to come up, because Angela has
Okay.
been living with this for many, many months, so.
Okay. Or maybe I'll wait and see if she wants to, are you going to do an overview of it, or you just?
I can.
Okay, maybe you answer my questions.
Okay, certainly. Good afternoon again. So the EEO plan is a written document of a plan that describes our efforts to achieve full compliance with the Equal Opportunity Commission and all related non-discrimination laws. So we currently have policies and procedures that are in effect that address this, but this is a more formal commitment that we're making as an organization. It's also a requirement in the Department of Criminal Justice Services as it relates to some of the grant funding that we're receiving in our police department, specifically related to the victim witness program that they have. So it's certainly a requirement that we do provide them with a plan, and the department has until the end of June 30th, 2024, to remit a plan. And so today we're asking if council would be willing to adopt that plan.
You mentioned on the end of the, I guess on page 12, where you're doing your utilization analysis. And I was looking at your table, and I had asked for this information several times, and I had not received it in the breakdown. So I'm not going to put you on the spot to ask for it, but I still would like to see that breakdown where you mention your employees, where you have your minority and you say racial, and then you have the white. But under the minority, I'm still trying to find out the class, the breakdown of the actual classes. And under table 2, you have minority and gender. And you do it again, you have the white employees, the minority, but you don't mention like black and others, or under the white, male, female, but you do go down and say male, female, but you don't break it down to black and, and others, that kind of thing. I'm looking for your whole racial divide.
Okay, so you like to see it that way.
And then even under your, the minorities for veterans, you have the white as 13 and 18, and then you say male, 14 and 20, even female, 2 and 1, meaning 21, 22. And then you have minority veterans, you say 3, but it doesn't tell me if they are Asian,
What the
white,
ethnicity
black,
is of those
whatever.
individuals.
So I'm just curious as to your breakdown, when you talk about inclusion, equity, employees, diverse, and et cetera. I'm just looking for the balance in that, where you, even in your employee overall count, I looked at your male count of employees from 21. You had, was it that one? Let me see if I'm on the right one. No, under minority and gender. And employees, you have your male, you had 129 and 21, and then you went to 160 in 22. And the females went from 95 to 133. So I'm just curious as to how many of those minorities made up that count, to see if the minorities is actually growing and trying to catch up to the all-white.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could certainly add that, just based on some of the templates and other formats used by other localities. We kind of mirrored it after that. And generally, they have it listed as white and minorities. They don't really break down the minorities, but we do have that data where we could do
Okay.
that. Probably the area where we're a little more challenges with our veterans.
Right.
But we've had some recent conversations to develop a better tracking system to be able to capture that information. So that's something we can do. Is it something you'd like to see in the plan before adopting it, or is that something you...
It can come after. I'm just
Get after,
curious.
okay.
I don't think it should hold up the plan. I just recall back in the early 70s and 80s, the minority hires, during affirmative action time.
Sure.
And then when affirmative action was no longer in place, I saw the numbers dwindle. and you saw more of minorities, especially in the blacks, were not being hired across the board in offices anymore. You're starting to see them mainly in your public works or the non-skilled labor,
Right.
that kind of thing, but not in the upper.
Okay. Okay, we can certainly do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr.
All right, any other discussion?
Now, just one observation. Are we able to incorporate the 2023 data, or are we still, we don't have all of it yet?
Well, we need to fine tune that. That was one of the reasons that we didn't include it. And just keep in mind, we had started on this plan at the end of last year, and so we didn't have that data available. And so it's kind of carried over into this year. It's one of the projects that I sort of took with me to the city manager's office in an effort to complete. So we don't have it available for this plan, but certainly we will have it in next year's plan. So with the EEO plan, it is something we have to update on an annual basis.
Oh, okay, so you're using the previous 2 years?
Correct.
It's easier, okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other discussions?
And if I may just share, I do want to publicly thank the city attorney's office. They've also been very helpful in helping us get to this point, to having a completed plan to present to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we
Thank you, city attorney.
All right, Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item C is acceptance and appropriation of funds from regional partners for the Wasina Skate Park project. First, there's a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph. On the
A resolution accepting and expressing appreciation for the donation of $530,000 from Roanoke outside the city of Salem and town of Benton regional partners to reallocate Wasina Skate Park.
All right, well, thank them for that regional cooperation. We really appreciate that, and,
Yeah, and Mayor, it's noted, I know, in the information you have, but just in case anybody is listening or looking, the funds that are being provided by Salem and Benton are directly for the skate park. The funds that are being provided through Roanoke Outdoors is for an adjacent pump track that will be incorporated into the entirety. And the last thing I wanted to say is, also wanted to thank Luke Pugh, the city engineer, because he was the one actually kind of handling the back and forth between all of those folks to be able to get this papered. So a really, really good example, I think, of regional cooperation that yields something of benefit for all the residents of the area. So, thank you.
well, you mentioned Benton. I mean, I know Benton is actually in Roanoke County. Is that Roanoke County involved? Is that?
So Benton, the town, is what has actually done this dedication. There is a conversation, I believe, still going on with Roanoke County. Is that still true? I don't want to put you on the spot, Luke. So, okay, there is not a conversation. So there was one in the past. So no, right now this is the town, the regional partnership, or I'm sorry, Roanoke Outdoors, and the city of Salem. And of course, city of Salem provided a substantial contribution to this, which was $200,000 with it. So that was significant. And that actually, Chris Dorsey, the new city manager there, got the benefit of being able to, sign the paperwork, but actually, previous city manager Jay Talaferro and current Parks and Recreation Director John Shaner are the ones that actually initiated the idea, along with the mayor there in Salem, to bring that forward, so.
Yeah, well, I think we're very much appreciative of it. And you all will be hearing soon, I think, where the vice mayor has put forward a good idea that we come together regionally and have some type of event to celebrate that regional group coming together. I think that would be good. So hopefully we'll hear more about that as we go forward. All right, Madam Clerk, you ready?
I am. I need to apologize. I said reallocate. I think it's relocate Wasina Skate Park. So when I look back, I thought it's not reallocate, it's relocate. So I want to make that correction.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to call the roll
I'll
now?
vote on the resolution.
Okay. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the resolution passes. There's the budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance to appropriate funding, Roanoke outside City of Salem and Town of Benton for the construction of the Wasina Skate Park, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 capital projects fund appropriations and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Thank you. Any discussion from members of council?
Mayor Lee,
Yes, sir.
a comment I probably should have made on the first one, but I do want to recognize, I know no one here represents anyone in Salem. It's unfortunate that the people who live there won't have a skate park in their area, but I am thankful that Salem is contributing to make our skate park that much bigger and better, and you'll be able to take the Greenway to get all the way there.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Thank you. Item number D is the acceptance of a National League of Cities of Opportunity Initiative stipend. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution. Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, can you please read the title paragraph?
Yes. A resolution authorizing the acceptance of funds from National League of Cities, approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Roanoke and National League of Cities, authorizing the execution of necessary documents upon certain terms and conditions, authorizing the city manager to execute such MOU, and authorizing the city manager to take such further action as may be necessary to implement and comply with such MOU.
All right. Any discussion by members of council?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I'd just add to this is, so the Cities of Opportunity program is something that the city has participated in with the National League of Cities back to 2019, I believe. We were one of, I think it was 7 communities that were asked to pilot the program. Since that time, they've had this program each year. And more recently, you may recall at the retreat, Brandon McGinley in our Economic Development Office had shared with you some work that he'd been doing through this program oriented around childcare, and this is that next step. So this is their continued effort in economic development to see if there's a way in leveraging resources from the National League of Cities to try to find ways to increase the availability of childcare services within the community. So that's what this most recent, and certainly wanted to thank the National League of Cities for their continued support, not only in getting us into this program, but then also providing the stipend to help take it to the next step with us. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Vice Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. Bob, I presume part of this is conducting a landscape analysis. Will that include the community partners who, as I know, like United Way brought together a lot of community
Yes.
stakeholders for the Smart Start program? And
Right,
of course, we
so-
have Head Start. And
Yeah, so actually, the United Way, and I'm going to get it wrong, there were 2 or 3 other partners that were actually part of this effort, and United Way was one of those partners. So absolutely, they're a part of this discussion also as they work their way through, because we definitely want to link to what's going on with that Smart Start program, and also the funding that the state has now put in. General Assembly and the governor both have had different proposals for childcare, so we certainly want this to be able to link to those opportunities.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson? Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. No, I'm sorry.
The resolution
Madam Clerk, read the title paragraph
for the budget ordinance.
for the budget ordinance.
All right. An ordinance to appropriate funding from the National League of Cities to the city to fund an outside consultant for assistance with development of a child care incentive program, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right. Now, is there any comments or discussion for council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
I think we need to vote. Did we vote on this one?
I think we didn't move in second.
Yeah.
We did move the budget ordinance.
Okay, we got it.
I'll second it.
Oh, we didn't
Okay.
move the budget on?
No.
No, that's okay.
That's okay.
Okay. All right, and just remember, read the title paragraph.
I already did.
She read it.
Well, I thought, how are we doing this now?
Okay. On the
Okay.
budget ordinance, I've read it, but I can read it again, but who
I need
moved
to-
it first?
I need to wake
Who
up
moved
here.
this one?
I moved it.
Okay,
And
Mr.
I
Brick,
second.
and Ms. Moon seconded. I have that, and then I have read it, but I will read it again to keep us in order. We don't have to? You want me to read it again?
You read it once. I
Okay,
think.
then we're ready for the vote then.
Is no further discussions, we ready to vote.
All right. Mr. Pretty,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd, Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds, Ms. Sanchez Jones, and Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Item number E is authorization of an encroachment permit for Greater Roanoke Transit Company, Valley Metro, GRTC, bus stop shelter located at Roanoke Fire EMS Station Number 6 in the right-of-way of 1333 Jameson Avenue Southeast, approximately 120 feet west of 14th Street. There's an ordinance.
Move the ordinance?
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, read the title paragraph, please.
All right. An ordinance allowing a bus shelter encroachment requested by the Greater Roanoke Transit Company doing business as Valley Metro into the public right-of-way adjacent to city-owned property located at 1333 Jameson Avenue Southeast, bearing official tax map number 4220316, known as Fire EMS Station Number 6, and which bus shelter will be located within the city right-of-way upon certain terms and conditions, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
All right, any discussion?
Mayor, the only thing I'll add to this, and it's true for the next two items also, is these are 3 bus shelters that are a part of our ongoing efforts to try to actually increase the number of bus shelters working in partnership with Valley Metro and with our city engineer's office to make these move in that direction. These are also definitely heavily used areas for transit services. So, thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk, you can call the roll, please.
Mr. Pretty,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones, Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. Thank you. Item number F is authorization of an encroachment permit for Greater Roanoke Transit Company, Valley Metro, GRTC, bus stop shelter located across Jameson Avenue from Roanoke Fire EMS Station Number 6 in the right-of-way east of 1302 Jameson Avenue Southeast, approximately 97 feet west of 14th Street. There's an ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance allowing a bus shelter encroachment requested by the Greater Roanoke Transit Company doing business as Valley Metro into the public right-of-way adjacent to property located at 1302 Jameson Avenue Southeast, bearing official tax map number 4220118, and which bus shelter will be located within the city right-of-way upon certain terms and conditions, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
All right, any discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
All right. Mr. Pretty,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones, and Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. Thank you. Item G is authorization of an encroachment permit for Greater Roanoke Transit Company at Valley Metro, GRTC, bus stop shelter located at the intersection of Jameson Avenue and 6th Street Southeast in the right-of-way west of and adjacent to property located at 616 Jameson Avenue Southeast, approximately 70 feet east of 6th Street. There's an ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance allowing a bus shelter encroachment requested by the Greater Roanoke Transit Company doing business as Valley Metro into the public right-of-way adjacent to property located at 616 Jameson Avenue Southeast, bearing official tax map number 4012812, which bus shelter will be located within the city right-of-way upon certain terms and conditions, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
All right, any discussion? Madam Clerk, go ahead, call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. All right, the next item on the agenda is comments of the city manager, and I'll call on for any comments you'd like.
Thank you, I have none, thank you.
The city attorney has none. Item 8 is reports of committees. 8.1 is a report of the Roanoke City School Board requesting appropriation of funds for various educational programs, and a report of the city manager recommending that council concur in the request. Donna Caldwell, Director of Accounting, is the spokesperson. There's a budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Commonwealth, federal, and private grant for various educational programs, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2023-2024 school grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right. Is there any discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Thank you. Item number 2, 8.1.2, is a report of certain authorities, boards, committees, and commissions in which city council serves as liaisons or appointees. If there are any comments by the council. If does anybody have any comments in this section? You do?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sanchez Jones.
I would like to remind everyone that the Peace Jam, our youth summit, is going to be this Saturday at William Fleming from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So come out and have lots of food and fun and different workshops. So I hope to see all of you there. Thank you.
What is that again? What was that?
It's the youth
Summit?
The youth summit
Okay,
is going to be at
okay.
Fleming this Saturday.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just have one comment.
Trish Fryboard.
Personal. So I am wearing this pink today for Breast Cancer Awareness Foundation. I'm raising money, so if you are so inclined to donate, you can reach me on my personal cell or email me. I'm happy to take donations. We all know that this foundation helps to save lives, and I'm happy to do this. And I'm also wearing my pink sneakers, so for every day, for 30 days, to bring awareness and to raise money for this very, very worthy cause. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, item number 10 is introduction and consideration of ordinances and resolutions. 10.1 is a resolution confirming the city manager's appointment of Christopher L. Chittum as acting assistant city manager. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Is there a second on it? Well, I can't make a second. There's no second?
Second?
Well, we got it. Did you hear it, man? I can't hear that
Did you hear
well.
them up?
I didn't hear a second.
No.
No second.
Who did the motion?
I think Joe.
Oh, and I second.
Okay, I didn't hear it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Madam Clerk, read the title paragraph, please.
A resolution confirming the city manager's appointment of Christopher Lynn Chittum as acting assistant city manager.
All right, any discussion on Councilman?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to entertain a motion to defer this item, table this item to a date certain. And the reason being because I, as one member of council, have not been privy to any information with regards to this appointment, and I don't want to vote on something that I'm not aware of.
Well, let me just say this. I just thought it was a decision by the city manager to make this temporary appointment. Was there any extensive discussion that was held on that?
It's an action that requires your consent, so, or confirmation.
That is true. The city manager did take the time to talk to, I believe, 5 or 6 council members to share his decision in making this an active, making Mr. Chittum an acting assistant city manager, but the city manager did not talk with me.
Just to be clear, I did not talk with anyone about
Well,
this unless they
just to be
asked a question
clear,
about
I
it.
was told you did, so I'm going by what I was told,
Well-
that there was some information shared
There
that was
were-
not shared with me.
There were 2 council members that
Okay.
asked me questions about this, and I spoke to those 2 council members about
As in the
this.
past, city manager, when you have done these, you have taken the opportunity to share it with the council ahead of time, that you're going to make these decisions, even though it is a rubber, as you would quote, rubber stamp. It's usually just a confirmation, but I don't feel comfortable in doing it. And also in here, you say, as communicated to council by a letter. I have not seen this letter.
Mayor Lee,
Yes, sir.
just a parliamentary inquiry. For the date certain on the motion, is that temporarily a date certain today, or is there a certain date being provided in this motion?
If I provided a date certain, I would use the next council meeting date, which we would be meeting in May.
Could I ask another parliamentary inquiry, Mayor Lee?
Yeah.
Could we table this
That's a-
temporarily
that's a recess meeting.
and then come back later and potentially table it for a further period of time? Would that be acceptable? Or it could be acted on after temporarily being tabled?
And what do you mean by temporarily?
Temporarily until the end of the meeting.
Till the end of this meeting? Yes, you're talking about till after the closed session.
But at that time, another motion could be made for a later point in time if so
If
desired.
necessary.
If there's a motion to table, we can vote on that.
Well, he's, I think, trying to find out, Mr. Pretty, I don't want to put words in your mouth, to see if there could be an alternate offer before there hadn't been a second. We're doing Robert's rules here.
So if there's no second on this, I'll make a different substitute motion, which is to table this resolution temporarily until the end of the meeting.
Is there a second on that motion to
So
table?
you said my motion lost by lack of second, if there was no second. And,
Yes, but that motion could still be made later in the meeting.
right, correct. I'm just saying it's parliamentary procedure myself. So my motion didn't receive a second. You're putting your motion on the table until the end of the meeting, and come back and decide if this should be voted on. I'm just getting your motion straight. I can do that. I'll second your motion.
So let me get this clear. We can go on that, we can vote on that? Are we
You
voting?
can vote on this.
Okay.
The first one died as a result of no second. This one has a second, therefore, it is appropriate for council to vote if you wish to table this towards the end of this meeting.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll on
Yes,
that?
sir, I can. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
No.
Ms. White Boyd?
No.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
All right, you. Sanchez,
It's a
have you
motion
voted?
it's a substitute motion to extend the time until following your closed meeting. We will vote again after the closed meeting.
Aye.
And Mayor Lee?
I didn't hear a vote.
She said aye.
No.
No. Okay, it's 4-3.
To table it.
To table it?
Yeah.
Temporarily.
Temporary table.
I don't see what the big deal is. Okay. All right, so the motion is tabled. We'll come back and revisit again after the closed meeting. All right, there we are on this. Okay, next item. Number 11 is motion and miscellaneous business. Are there any inquiries or comments by the mayor and members of city council?
Mayor, I have to apologize. I made my comment in the wrong section, so it was supposed to be under this section here, so I apologize. I was out of order with my, when I was advocating for funds for my breast cancer awareness.
Well, I think everybody here got it.
I apologize.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I just wanted to extend my thanks to the Wasena Neighborhood Forum and the city and all the folks who turned out for the Wasena Bridge Bonanza. I think everyone was overwhelmed and delighted by the turnout, which was pretty remarkable. And a lot went into the planning of that, and I think if it's appropriate, I'd love for the council to send a thank you note to the Neighborhood Forum for really taking the lead on that and making that happen.
Thank you. How did it go? Was it a good crowd out there?
There were thousands of people.
Thousands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was really amazing.
All right, any other?
Yes, sir. I just want to just give the shout out to Doug Jackson and crew for the Connect the Arts on the Daisy Art Parade. That was a fantastic event. The wind was a little bit breezier than we thought it would be, but they had so many artistic people that participated in the parade. I know some of the council members dressed up and participated, which I thought was really neat. And so I saw one lady, which was a tall woman, who was actually from New Mexico. And I thought that was an awesome outfit that girl was wearing. And I have to say that we heard so many positive things on the Days Art Parade. In fact, said this was probably the best one yet. So I assume that next year will be even better. Thank you.
Okay. Vacancies on certain authorities, boards, commissions, committees appointed by council, we have none. And so, insomuch as there's no public hearings or items for discussion by the council, the 7 p.m. session has been canceled, and we will go into recess for a closed meeting and reconvene after the closed meeting. Thank you. Council's reconvene, and I will ask Councilman Pretty to make a motion.
I move with respect to any closed meeting just concluded that each member of City Council in attendance certify to the best of his or her knowledge that one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in any motion by which any closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the members of council in attendance.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
I will. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye. And thank you. All right, now, we had a motion on the floor when we left. Is that?
Is that what we're doing first?
Put that on. Okay.
Do I need to motion to untable it, or has it already been tabled to the end of this
It's
here?
already tabled to this point.
So we don't have to bring it back up? Okay.
No.
Can
It
we-
was tabled to the end of the agenda.
So move the resolution?
Yes, move the resolution.
Okay.
Then read the title paragraph.
Oh, yeah, we are, yeah.
Oh, gotta read the file. Okay. All right. A resolution confirming the city manager's appointment of Christopher Lynn Chittum as acting assistant city manager.
Call the question.
Well, I have something I need to say. Just to be clear, now, will there be, and I just say this for the record, will there be an explanation as to the appointment for the record as we had discussed? I just want that to be.
Yeah, what I will do is, so in the resolution, it makes reference to a letter, which actually was, as you all know, in the form of an email. So I will actually change that and put it in the form of a letter, if you actually will make that a part of your motion,
Sure.
so that it'll be attached as a part of the record. So
That's
yes,
what I
yes.
wanted it to be part of the record, that there would be. So we're amending,
Is that a friendly amendment?
beg pardon?
A friendly amendment?
Yes, a friendly amendment to include a note, a letter, note, and one comment to attach to it. Thank you.
All right, so we need a motion for that?
No, it's just a friendly amendment to add to it.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, you call the roll?
All right, Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye. Thank you. All right. There's no further business.
Wait.
Oh, we got, what is it? Oh, school board, huh? Man. I'm ready to get out of the school board. All right, I'm gonna let our personnel chair tell us about the candidates that we selected to interview for school board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I just want to say thank you to all of our applicants. Some really, really good applicants this year, but we have decided to interview 7, and I will call the names, and these interviews will be held on May 6th. The first one is Milton Hardy, Carrie Garnett, Deidre Trigg, Seclinda Canty Elliott, Michael Cherry, Arliz Quintana, and David Howe. So these are the applicants for the position of school board that we're going to interview on May 6th. And I will also add that there will be a public hearing on May 20th. So if you are in support or against one of these candidates, we would love to hear from you during the public hearing on May the 20th here in these chambers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, before you adjourn the meeting, I just want the record to show under the closed session that I did not participate in the action taken on the selection of the school board applicants.
That is correct.
All right, so no.
Recess.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's right, I'm sorry, recess the meeting, yes.
All right, recess until
25th.
25th of April,
25th of April.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
next Thursday. Right back here again.
Okay.
Same bad time.
All right, being no further business, council will be in recess until April 25th.
7 o'clock.
7.